Good evening. At this time, I'll call the May 6, 2024 County Council meeting to order. Our first item of business is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'll recognize Tommy Adkins with District 3.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day that you've given us. Thank you for your many blessings. Lord, give us wisdom and guidance tonight if we go about the people's business, and keep us all safe in our travel homes. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Tonight, we do not have any oath of offices for our boards and commission members, and our appearances tonight, I was informed that the previous appearances, there was a conflict of interest time frame to do that, so we do not have an appearance. Before we move into the public forum session, do we have a motion to suspend the rules to allow the item number 2 in new business dealing with the adoption of a resolution recognizing May 5th through 11th, 2024 as National Correctional Officer Appreciation Week to come before council before we get into appearances?
Yeah, motion to move that forward to come before the other appearances.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So we do have a motion for a resolution on our agenda tonight, and this is one of those areas where folks don't recognize just how much our sheriff's department under the correctional officers area, what they do to serve our community. It is a thankless job. It is one of those jobs where you serve in protecting us in the jail side of the correctional side, and oftentimes you get treated unfairly, you get treated badly, and it's a job that a lot of folks don't want to do. You get spit on, you get chastised, you get you know, I'm sure that we'll get some additional commentary from our folks, but one of the things that I've been very impressed with our sheriff's department, and I understand that Sheriff Tilson couldn't be here tonight because he had a conflict, but we do have John Hicks with us here tonight, as well as Major Fred Moore, who can come forward and share with us some comments from that community. But one of the things that's critically important is that if we are going to have a judicial system, we have to have folks that are there to serve the community and the correctional officer side. And that is a job that's difficult, and it's one that folks don't rush to apply for, but it's critical for us to do the job that we need to do to make sure that our community is safe and that we are represented well. And I'll recognize you now, Mr. Hicks.
And again, on behalf of Sheriff Tolson, we just appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. There's not much more I can say other than what you just said. We do a job that many don't want to do or can't do. From the differences between the enforcement division, the detention division, we're all one though, and one of the things that I love that Major Moore talks about all the time is that we hire good people and make them good officers, and that's both on the deputy side and the detention side. The detention side is the least seen part of law enforcement, but probably one of the most vital parts of the criminal justice system as a whole, as we are holding individuals awaiting their trial, awaiting their whether they're guilty or innocent, and we spend a lot of time with them. Our officers, as you said, we spend 12 hours, our officers spend 12 hours a day with the inmates. Our deputies arrest them and bring them in, and then they leave. So they're spending a smaller amount of time with them, where we are with them. We are a direct supervision facility, so our officers stand in the middle of them and are outnumbered quite often 64 to 72 to 1. And respect goes a long way. One of the biggest things that Sheriff Tolson has in kind of orders is respect, and that is respect whether we are sir or we are something else that they want to call us. There are times where we get spit on. There are times that we get assaulted, but we stand in that gap. A lot of times the community, the civilians don't see that. And we're here because we love what we do. It is not a job for everybody. You guys came in last year, and I said earlier tonight, we'd love to have you back. We've done a lot of different things over the last year. Our goal is to make sure that when the inmates leave, that they do leave our facility in a better place than when they came in. We have added programs. We've added some different things. We're trying to get a GED program set up so they can actually get that GED while they are inside, so that then when they leave, they're actually a better civilian, a better community member when they leave. In that, we're also trying to make sure and better our staff from the mental wellness side. Corrections, detention officers have one of the highest suicidal ideation rates out of all careers that rival even the military. So we have done a lot of things over the last year trying to make sure our staff, those that are sitting behind me, are taken care of as well. We want to make sure that they are no worse than when they came in. So we would love to have you guys out again, walk through some of the things that we've done and talk through some of that, as well as the county administrator and some other folks as well. But thank you again for this honor. Thank you for recognizing the things that we do on a daily basis that don't get seen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I do want to make sure that we have a picture with council on this, but at this time, I think we'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution to recognize May 5th through 11th as the National Correctional Officer Appreciation Week. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve, motion to approve.
Motion to approve the resolution. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. If we could have all the folks that came here in recognition of that, we do want to say thank you so much for the work that you do. We know that you are the unseen folks that do a lot of work. I mean, you know, Mr. Hope here, I know him personally. He helped us go through a whole, council came out and did a tour, and we're very much appreciative of the work that you do, and we thank you for the job that you're doing. Very proud to be able to support this.
You say when.
All ready? All right. Thanks.
Thank you. We do not, as I mentioned before, we do not have any appearances tonight that could make it here. We do move to our public forum session. This is an opportunity for us as council to hear from folks in the community on matters that pertain to county jurisdiction. This is not an opportunity for us to ask you questions. So some folks get up here and they start asking us questions. This is not a place for us to respond back. It's us to listen to you. And the way that we've structured this is to make sure that there's 15 folks that can sign up ahead of time. If you get here, it's first come, first serve. You can speak. You have 2 minutes. My job is to make sure that I keep us on track because we have a lot of things on this agenda to keep us moving forward. So when we hit the 2-minute mark, I'm gonna have to cut you off. I hate doing that, but that's my job. Just don't kill the messenger. That's what I'm supposed to do. Now, if you are a speaker, I'll ask you to come forward. Please give your name and address. And if you'll pay attention to the screen, it'll give you some lights. So when you get close to when your time is supposed to be cut off, it'll go to yellow, and then at red, it'll say cut you off. And then when it turns to red, I'm gonna cut you off. And that's my job to do that. So if you'll make sure that your comments are directed to county council issues, don't call out people individually because we don't have an opportunity to respond to you. But if it's a county council issue, we do want to hear from you. And this is important to us that we get an opportunity to hear from you. I will say this one other thing. We do have a number of public hearings tonight. So if you are here about a public hearing item, which we have 8 of them, you do not get cut off on your time if you wait until the public hearing time. So if it's a public hearing item and you want to wait until the public hearing time, then I won't cut you off at that time. I suggest that you potentially wait until that period of time to be heard on that matter because then you aren't limited on your time. First item up is, first person to sign up is Tony Smith. Public hearing? Is there a public hearing on that? I'm sorry, there's not a public hearing, so if you want to be heard, move forward.
All right, guys. Tony Smith, 4249 Sharer Road, Sharon, South Carolina. I'm gonna try to get this done in 2 minutes, but I am pretty long-winded, so let's get started. Last meeting, I just wanted to point out that Councilman Roddy, matter of fact, I went and sat with the neighbors the other day and trying to work this out. Miss Mooney sent me home with some cookies for my little boy, and I think I'd ate them all before I got home, but I got to thinking about my little boy, and I got to thinking about what Mr. Roddy said. He kept saying the word fair. What's fair? What's fair? And my little boy's almost 3, and so we have to explain a lot of things to him lately. And I got to thinking, how am I going to explain this in fairness? And so I just want to point out, is it fair that my neighbor has RUD zoning? Is it fair that the neighbor who speaks out in opposition here both live on RUD zoning? Is it fair that there's another builder building across the street on a 2-acre tract, which is smaller than what I'm asking for, on RUD zoning? Is it fair that this council has voted 36 times since January 2023 to rezone from AGC to RUD, whether that be first, second, or third reading? So just wanted to kind of point out, I don't think I could sit down and explain to him what's fair. But I also wanted to point out that I'm a local builder. I employ local people. My guys live here, they work here, they eat here, their kids go to school here. We don't come out of Charlotte, we don't drive down 77 or 85 to get here. After we finish these homes, we're still here. But I wanted to just leave you with this. I've served 6 years on the zoning board, and we have a set of criteria that we use to do variances and special exceptions, stuff like that. And the first one that I was thinking about is there adequate water and sewer. I have the DHEC soil reports here, it's great soil. I don't think that's a problem, we'll have wells. But the second one is the authorization, and I replace variance with rezoning. The authorization of this rezoning will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or public good. And the third thing is the character of this district will not be harmed by granting this rezoning. And so I ask that you guys grant us this rezoning to build 2
Thank you, Mr.
homes
Smith.
deed restricted on 3 acres.
Thank you, sir. Scott Kokenauer.
Hey, Scott Kokenauer, 122 West Oak Street in beautiful Whiteville Park neighborhood of downtown Fort Mill, South Carolina. Just as I normally start, a lot of good sporting events going on in our community, and I've been to a few of them. So anyway, so a lot of that, and spring football did start up. So, and they asked me again to announce Catawba Ridge football next fall, so I committed to that. So, hey, I'm just here to thank everyone from staff and council for the budget, for squashing our 4.4 mil, not recycling it. That was there to dispose of a bond, and it was used and got to our time frame. And once again, I'd just like to thank everyone on your budget that we were able to help support small businesses in York County by not trying to extend that out and everything. So once again, thank y'all for everything.
Thank you, sir. Dean Ham.
My name is Dewey Dean Ham. This is in reference to case 2412. I'm against the rezoning to RUD, basically because at the first council meeting we told us it was already a split zone, and we found out later it was not. Second, of how many dwellings can go on AGC. You can only put 1 dwelling. It has to be on 10 acres. Long-range planning for the zoning commission is everything go to AGC, so why change this particular 6 acres to RUD now, other than to allow Mr. Smith to have the 2 homes? Also, the impact on the traffic, while it'd only be 2 homes, as was stated, the land across the road there has been broken up into several parcels, which is going to add quite a bit of traffic on this road. And again, no impact on the builder, but once he builds, he's gone. He's not going to live in these homes. Thank the council very much.
Thank you, sir. We have John Hicks, and it looks like Rodney Hope with York County Detention's Office. I don't think they're here. I saw them walk out. I think they thought they needed to sign up, but if there's anybody who wants to speak on that, I will give you a second. It looks like, gotta put my glasses on for this one. Michael Hinston was also with York County Sheriff's Office, and Sally Crow with YCDC, and Stephen Dellinger, and somebody with the beginning of an L. Campbell, York County Sheriff's Office Detention Center as well. I think all those folks just left us, but if I missed you, come forward. If not, we're going to move on to Cynthia Mooney. I keep saying your name wrong. I think I got it right that time because it looks like Mauney, but
It does. It looks like Mooney, but it's pronounced Mooney.
Okay.
Goes back
Thank you,
to
ma'am.
the 1700s. Cynthia Mooney, 368 Cedar Grove Road. I am here to speak against rezoning case number 2412. First, I want to thank all of the council for this opportunity to speak and to thank Tony Smith for his visit. However, I am befuddled as to why the council would vote yes to rezone an AGC property to RUD when it is totally going against the agriculture future land use in the York Forward 2035 comprehensive plan. The original homestead has been divided into 9 lots, and if you vote yes, it will be divided into 10 lots. Therefore, a small subdivision of at least 10 homes could, and probably more, could be built. Our 2-lane road will have more damage and potholes. I sent pictures to all the council members, and I hope you received them. Also, I had no idea that my house was zoned RUD until this zoning issue came up. I went to the zoning office to change it to AGC, and the cost would be over $500, which is way over my fixed income budget. Again, thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Chris Blevins? You want to pass through? All right. It looks like we also have about 4 more York County Detention Center folks that didn't, I think they just signed up thinking they needed to sign into the meeting. Looks like Christus Calvarus, something with a CK, Jamelia Smith, Jay Cocker, and John Grisham. Any of those folks here? All right. So since those folks seem to sign up for something that wasn't appropriate, we'll allow Mr. Tony Pennell.
My name's Tony Pennell. I live at 1920 Crystal Ridge Drive. I own a tow company in Rock Hill over on Mount
Can you
Gallup.
speak into the mic, sir? I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay. Did you hear any of it?
Not much.
Okay, my name's Tony Pennell. Can we reset that time since you didn't hear nothing?
There we go.
All right. My name's Tony Pennell. I live at 1920 Crystal Ridge Drive in Rock Hill. I own Tony's Garage and Towing on Mount Gallant Road. And today we just found out that y'all was having a meeting on trying to figure out a price list on the rotation. Right now it's $257 for a call. And there's several other people here in the record service with me. They just found out because I called them. And we want to know what the fee's going to be, because we sure don't want to lower them because the price of the fuel, the trucks these days, and employees to have to drive the trucks when we got employees to drive. The trucks are $150,000 these days. When I started this, the trucks was when I started this, the trucks was $36,000. So you can tell, that's back in 91, you could tell how much the price of the vehicles had been from 91 to today's date. We just want to see if we can keep it the same as the highway patrol, like it has been for years. Because if it gets any lower than that, half of us ain't gonna want to do it, because it ain't gonna be worth us getting up in the middle of the night to go get a call. And we just want to see if we can keep it the same. I mean, we got insurance, diesel fuel, employees, breakdowns. I just serviced 3 of my trucks last week. It cost me $1,200 to change the oil and filters in 3 trucks. And tires, they about $200-something a piece. If you need brakes and all that stuff, you got to consider the wear and tear on the vehicles as well. I mean, we go out there in the middle of the night, freezing rain, trying to get a car out of the ditch or whatever for a sheriff's call. And now I hear through the grapevine that they want to lower the rates down to $150.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
So I will say this, there's an ordinance that's proposed in front of council that you can get a copy of, and you can get a schedule of that. If you'll make sure that you stop to our clerk to council right here, she'll make sure that you get a copy of what's presented before council, at least so you understand what's in front of us.
Okay. Well, that's what the email says. Is that on y'all's Facebook thing?
Yep, if you'll stop right here with her, she'll make sure that she emails you a copy of the current
Okay.
ordinance.
Well, everybody else like to have an email when the next meeting is coming.
Yep, if you'll stop with her, make sure that it should be in the agenda packet. Everybody should have access to it. If you would like an email, make sure that you get it from her and she can share with you what the current ordinance reads as. Yep, go ahead and do it now. Anybody who would like to have the same thing, she can send it to you. It is a matter of public record as well in the agenda. I move now to Mike Fry. Okay. Lat Purser. I can't hear. Pass. All right. Justin Caskey. Pass. Carl Falk.
Good evening. I'm Carl Falk, Chief of Newport Fire Department. Live at 3755 Turtle Pond Drive in Rock Hill. I'm here about the turnout gear. I have talked to the county manager. We had a good conversation, even though he didn't agree with me. I just felt like I needed to bring to y'all. I started this process about a month ago to buy 3 sets of turnout gear my tax district had approved for me to purchase. The vendor that we had last year is still honoring last year's contract. I don't know why I was being told there wasn't no contract, because they were still honoring it till December 31st. I know you're gonna let the bid tonight on a new vendor, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with the vendor. But the problem I have, my price from last year's price that the vendors gave me is $3,429.50 for 1 set of gear. The price of tonight's bid, if my figures are right, for 1 set of gear is $3,922.62. It'll cost me about $500 more a set to go in with the new contract. And I know how things work, but I started this process over a month ago and was told to do this, and then all of a sudden somebody pulled the string on it and put the skids on it. I'm just asking that council would let me go ahead and pursue the set of gears that I have talked with the vendor. He came last week and sized my fireman. Took time out of his day to come size. I think 2 weeks ago he sold gear to Riverview Fire Department. So that's
Thank you,
all
sir.
I'm asking, to be able to buy the cheaper gear at this time.
Thank you, sir. Keith, I'm gonna get this wrong. I can't tell. Sol Keat, it looks like with the wrecker issue as well. I assume he got his questions answered with Karen. Chad McKinnon.
Good evening. My name's Chad McKinnon, 369 Cedar Grove Road. I rise to speak briefly yet again on the 2412 rezoning issue to rezone those lots from AGC to RUD. I appreciate my neighbors having come out and represented many other neighbors in our area that we are concerned about an incremental, continual dividing and dividing, and in a couple more years down the road, dividing yet again of that property. My wife and I, in the past 3 years, we moved from Charlotte, North Carolina to this community. We wanted to raise our children in the country on our little farm. We got cows and goats and chickens and a bunch of dogs, and I have 9 children. And my boys shot their first deer on that back pasture back there. We don't want that land to continue to be divided and subdivided. And we are concerned about, maybe not on this particular exception to the rule, but more exceptions to the rule will continue to be made in the years to come. And then that, defeats the purpose of me driving an hour and 15 minutes to my job every day, where we wanted to live in the country and not have really any sort of dense housing around us or over dividing of the space. I don't know how much time I have because that never got reset.
I don't either. I'm not sure it ever started. I think we started with the blank.
Well, that's fine. I'll wrap up. That is my concern yet again on case 2412, that it just continues. No desire to infringe on anybody's rights, but what we do with our property affects one another. We have master planning agreements that have been referenced already this evening, and I respectfully request that you follow the guidelines that was made in the master planning agreement to not continue to divide and make exceptions to the rule, and then build upon that precedent to do it again. So anyway,
Thank you, sir. That concludes our public forum session. We do we have a motion on consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries and consent agenda is approved unanimously. Move now to first item of public hearings, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-14, tax map number 65500000037 to rezone from UD to GC, 1.35 acres in District 1. Mr. Bueno.
Yes, good evening, council. So this request is on Highway 160 in Fort Mill, just west of I-77. The parcel is just over an acre, and the request is to go from UD to GC. It's an existing strip center, so they would like to rezone to GC so that they are assured that any future tenant changes are a smooth transition, because there are some commercial uses that are not allowed in the UD district. So they are hoping to resolve that future problem now. So staff recommends approval of the request. It is consistent with the comp plan and future land use map. You can see this calls for a town center node, so certainly the general commercial district fits with that future land use designation. There is GC in the general vicinity, also on Highway 160, and it would eliminate another parcel from the legacy UD district. And by a 6-0 vote, Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions for staff before we open public hearing?
No, none here.
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this rezoning request? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Move now to item number 2, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-15, tax map number 65500000034 to rezone from UD to GC, 0.79 acres in District 1.
Yes, here we have an identical request. This is the parcel to the immediate south of the prior rezoning application, so this is just under an acre. Similar approach here. They are looking to safeguard against having problems with future tenant changes. So consistent with the previous application, it's consistent with the comp plan, the future land use map. There is GC in the general vicinity on 160, and it would eliminate a parcel from the UD district. Staff and Planning Commission recommend approval.
Any questions for staff before we open public hearing?
No.
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Do we have a motion to close public hearing?
Motion to close?
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Yeah, motion to approve?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We move now to item number 3, public hearings, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-16, tax map number 555-000008, to rezone from RSF 30 to OI .89 acres in District 2. Mr. Buona.
This application is for a parcel that's just under an acre, has an existing vacant dwelling on it on Hands Mill Highway. So here's some photographs of the site. And the applicant is proposing to convert that vacant residence into an office building. So here are some of the zoning districts that are in the vicinity. So I'll go over a few of these, and staff analyzed this, looking at each of these different districts and how it might inform our recommendation for this particular application. So there are 3 parcels zoned neighborhood commercial in the salmon color to the north of this property. 2 of those are vacant, and 1 is a single-family residence use currently. The property to the direct north, adjacent to this property, is a legal non-conforming welding business, and it is still zoned RSF 30 today, like the application property. There are 2 light industrial properties across the street. One is a vehicle repair use, and 1 is a single-family residential use. Those properties were zoned in 2008. And just to the south, on Liberty Hill Road, there was a request to rezone that to neighborhood commercial for a baseball training facility, and that was denied in 2023. So that's kind of the context of the area zoning-wise. There's a couple different colors there, so I wanted to lay that out for you. But this application here is not located at the intersection of a major roadway, and there's really no similar uses or districts in the vicinity that would lead staff to recommend approval. So we therefore recommend denial. It's inconsistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. You can see on the map on the right, this area calls for exclusively single-family residential as a future land use. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not at the intersection of major roads, which might allow for some commercial, and there's no similar districts or uses present in the immediate vicinity. And we really should be protecting Hands Mill Highway from sporadic, unplanned commercial redevelopment. And this particular application might be considered spot zoning. And by a 6-0 vote, Planning Commission also recommends denial.
Thanks, sir. Any questions for staff before we open for public hearing? Mr. Roddy.
Just a real quick question. So what do we see as a potential use for this particular lot? I know there are some homes located on Hands Mill. There's some non-conforming businesses on Hands Mill. So just what do we see being able to go there that would?
So the comp plan calls for it to be single-family residential and to stay that way, so that would be staff's position as well.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Anyone in favor?
Move to close.
Second. Motion and a second, close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to deny.
Second.
Motion and a second to deny. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously to deny first reading. Moving now to item number 4, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-17, tax map number 382-000065 to rezone from RMX 20 to RSF 40, 15.67 acres in District 2. Mr. Buona.
This application property is a portion of the Clover High School site. So it's just under 16 acres, and for whatever historical reason, it has a different zoning district than the rest of the property. So the school district is looking to rectify that. So here's a zoomed in photo of just the application property. Staff recommends approval. It is inconsistent with the comp plan and future land use map. If you look on the right-hand side, it calls for a rural residential. However, because it is an existing school and that is an allowed use in both of those districts, and RSF4 is certainly more suitable for the rural residential designation than the existing RMX 20. We're recommending approval. It's also surrounded entirely by the RSF 40 district as well. And Planning Commission likewise recommends approval by a 6-0 vote.
Any questions for staff before we open public hearing?
Jonathan, I just have one question. Is RMX 20, that is, what's allowed on RMX 20 in that zoning?
Residential, and it would allow for things like duplexes.
Okay. Any idea what the plan is for that? Is there a change in the use for that property?
I haven't heard of any specific plans at this time. I think we've got some of the applicant folks here, but.
Yeah, okay. I didn't have a chance to, but it's not commercial. It's not a commercial, no commercial use there.
No, ma'am, and it's already encumbered by a lot of development. From the photo
Okay.
here, you can see some athletic fields and some
Okay.
parking and some of the buildings on the site already.
Okay, thank you.
And this is the Clover School District asking for this, correct?
It is.
Yes.
Any other questions? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously to approve first reading. Moving now to item number 5, council rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-18, tax map number 65100000012 through 025 to rezone from NC to GC 2.19 acres in District 1. Mr. Buona.
Yes, this application property is at the intersection of Gold Hill Road and Pleasant Road. It's just over 2 acres. The applicant proposes to construct a gas station with a convenience store. So here's a sketch of what they would like their site to look like. And in order to have that use, they need to have the general commercial district. So here's what that looks like in context with the rest of the area. There are 2 existing gas stations in the immediate vicinity. So it certainly fits with the character of the area. Staff recommends approval. Now, it is inconsistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. On the right there, you see this is designated as a neighborhood center. So typically, we would want to see more of the neighborhood serving uses. However, because of the existing circumstances of the current zoning in the area, there is GC on all 4 corners of the other 3 corners of this intersection already. And as I mentioned, there are existing gas stations adjacent to the north and to the east. So we recommend approval, as does the Planning Commission, by a 6-0 vote.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
Yeah, so real quick, can you bring in the other map up real quick, Jonathan? So you've got 2 entrances, so there's 2 arteries for traffic flow coming in and out of here. Okay. And that is, the exit's also right across from, directly across the road from the entrance to where the post office is then? Okay. All right, I think I see everything I need. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions before we open public hearing? Anyone here wish to speak in against this request? Anyone wish to speak in favor?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of council. My name is Dan Ballou, Morton & Gaddis, representing the applicant in this case. Client is here, representatives of my client and the engineering firm. Had conversations with Mr. Audette, understand this is a relatively high visibility intersection in the Fort Mill area, and understand there are concerns. We want to get it right. We think this is a good application. We think it's a good use of this property. We are waiting on the on DOT's report. Certainly will comply with whatever DOT recommends. To address one of the concerns we spoke about earlier, the traffic issue, if you'll notice, there is a right-in, right-out off of Gold Hill, and then an open access onto Pleasant Road. As we've analyzed this site, there are other, there's the Quick Trip across Pleasant Road, and then there's the grocery store across Gold Hill. One of the challenges with this intersection, I think we'd all agree, is left-hand turns that stop traffic. And we believe that this use will actually reduce the number of left-hand turns. It will give somebody who is coming down Pleasant Road or Gold Hill Road options to not have to turn left to go into a gas station. So if that's their goal, if they're coming up Pleasant Road, they're likely going to turn right into Quick Trip as opposed to crossing left to come into Murphy. On the other hand, if they're coming down Gold Hill Road, they'll have that opportunity to come in and not have to cross over and then make that turn. We think it will actually alleviate some of the issues there. We don't think it's going to be a tremendous add to traffic. It's not a destination location. It's a service location. So we feel like this is a positive to the community, will improve that intersection and be an asset to the community. So certainly want to have an opportunity to answer any questions y'all may have, and we'll do so at this time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this rezoning? Do we have a motion to close?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously to approve first reading. Move now to item number 6, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-19, tax map number 63900000049 to rezone from RMX 20 to RSF 40, 47.3 acre portion of a 67.39 acre parcel in District 6. Mr. Buono.
Yes, this is a downzoning request of a portion of the property just off the lake. So here's a zoomed in zoning map. So you can see with the hatched area, that's the area that is to be rezoned. So there's 2 districts on this parcel currently, and they are looking to downzone the balance of it so that the entire property is in the RSF 40 district. And the purpose for that is so that they can subdivide it in the future. Staff recommends approval. It is consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. The RSF 40 district is adjacent and throughout the vicinity, and it also would eliminate the split zoning status of this property. By a 6-0 vote, Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for staff before we open public hearing?
Just a comment. So I spoke to the owners of this property, and this is part of an estate planning fix, because there are multiple families that own this property, and they need to divvy it up, so that's what they're doing. I can provide more information for you.
I think the main point for me to ask is their downzoning, so whatever density they would be allowed to do by right, they're asking for less. Is that correct?
It is.
I don't know that anybody here ever has a problem with that, but you never know. So any other questions? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously for first reading. Move now to item number 7, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-20, tax map number 191-00-00-005 to rezone from GC to AGC, 2-acre portion of a 30.6 acre parcel in District 3. Mr. Buono.
Yes, this application is also trying to remedy a split zoning situation. So they're looking to zone just that 2-acre portion from GC to AGC. Here is zoomed in photography. You can see there are a lot of cars in the aerial photography. Those have all been removed. The applicant has discontinued and vacated their former vehicle repair business, so they are seeking to rezone so that the entire property is AGC. Staff recommends approval. As you can see from the sea of green on both of these maps here, it's consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. There is AGC district directly adjacent and throughout the vicinity, and it would eliminate that split zoning status. By a 6-0 vote, PC also recommends approval.
Thank you, sir. Any questions before we open up public hearing? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close. Second.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Are we on number 8? I'll make sure.
8.
Number 8, public hearing. Council on public hearing and consider second reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 155 zoning code, Section 155.937, temporary signs to modify standards related to the location, size, number, and permitting of temporary signs in each sign district, to modify the permitted duration of stay for the temporary signs, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters relating thereto.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, it's public hearing.
Actually, we do have public hearing. Is there any questions for staff before we open up public hearing? Mr. Roddy?
If we're changing what we're allowing, it doesn't seem too efficient if we're just knocking off one sign. How do we come up with saying, all right, we allow 6, all right, we're just going to bump it down to 5. We allow 4, we're going to go to 3. We allow 5, we're going to 4. How do we come up with these numbers to say what is better?
So the number of temporary signs that's in the current code was translated from the old code, and the draft of the amendment includes changes based on council feedback from the workshop a few weeks back. So that's how all the signage, both the larger signs and the smaller, were translated from the older code to the current code, and any of the draft changes were as requested by council.
And the 40, like, for instance, and I'll just read for the record in our notes, allow 2 large temp signs instead of 3. Allow 6 small signs, basically, allow 6 temp signs per lot instead of 5. So we went up on 1, down on 1, from 45 days, from 90 days down to 45 days. So it don't seem like we're doing too much finagling or moving. So my question would be, so why the change? Because we're not impacting it. We're not moving the needle. If we don't want to see a bunch of temporary signs up, we're not really changing the optics of riding by seeing these signs with what we're doing. So I was just kind of questioning why are we even putting our hands in exhausting a lot of time on something that's really not. I mean, if it's a problem, we need to be making bigger changes.
At this point in the process, we're here to ask questions of staff before we open public hearing. Are there any questions for staff?
I was basically saying, how do we even get to this point of making these small changes? But I'll save it for later.
I have a question, John, because this came up. So that's the bottom part of this, is that what's being recommended now? Because that's got on there the twice per year for no more than 90 days, and what we're reading here says limit duration to 45 days instead of 90.
Yes, so you might be reading from the Planning Commission recommendation. So the official draft text that's proposed is the change, all the changes that council had talked about at the workshop. So going from 30 days to 90 days, the differentiation with the Lake Wiley sign district, no permitting, having 3 large signs and 5 smaller ones. So those are the changes that are the actual part of the draft ordinance. So the Planning Commission recommendation deviated from the draft text, so that's why there's that difference.
So what we're looking at on the blue screen is what? Is that the planning commission? Okay.
No,
so-
this is the draft text.
Okay.
And Jonathan, how long do we have to take the signs up? I don't remember.
So it would depend on what you all settle on as the time period. As you had proposed, it would be 90 days. So any particular sign, no matter what it says, could only be up for 90 days at a time.
And then they have to be picked up.
They would have to be picked up sometime before it went into the 91st day of being posted on the property.
And so I'm just trying to, I'd like to have, this is where I need like 3 monitors up here. But in the Lake Wiley overlay that we reduced, that was 30 days, is that right? Because I'm not looking at a separate 30-day.
Yep, so if you look at the screen we got here, at the bottom in the red text, that has the different time period laid out for the Lake Wiley sign district.
Okay.
One more comment. So the sign can be, it says here, but these are the planning commission's recommendation, 45 instead of 90.
Yes,
But
sir.
we're not going with that.
It's entirely your decision, so we just have the draft text and then we convey to you what the Planning Commission had recommended.
Enforcement. Are we staffed to enforce times, sizes? What's this look like for our staff? If we're gonna make these changes and say you can only put this number up, this size, how are we going to enforce? Are we equipped to enforce what we're about to make the rule of the day?
So as the draft sits today and as the Planning Commission had recommended, it but loosens the restrictions on temporary signs so they can be up for longer. There can be more of them. The big key when it comes to enforcement is permitting. So as the draft stands, there's no permitting required for temporary signs. So if there's no permit, we don't know officially when it went up or if it was ever staff doesn't have the ability to tell the applicant, yeah, you're good to put it there. They might put it in the right spot, they might not. So essentially, if we receive a complaint, and I'll say we very rarely receive temporary sign complaints, very few and far between. But if we did receive a complaint, someone called and said, well, that's been on my neighbor's property for 2 years now. We wouldn't have any evidence to suggest that except for hearsay. So at that point in time, which we investigated the property, that would essentially have to serve as the start of the 90-day clock, the 45-day clock, whatever timeline you all decide is most appropriate.
So to me, I mean, just being honest, it sounds like we're putting something in place, that it's kind of like all for naught because we have no way of knowing, like you just stated, it's going to be on a complaint-driven basis.
We'll keep our comments to the debate at the debate time, but if there's questions for staff, I'd make the questions for staff. Is there any questions for staff before we open public hearing?
So I'm sorry. One more question, Jonathan. On across the top, the number maximum, Lake Wiley has no maximum, so that means they can put out as many signs
As long as they are in a residential district, yes.
in the residential district. Okay.
Jonathan, I was thinking that at the workshop we discussed allowing signs at a non-residential location. For a commercial business, my own business, I can put a sign on my property, temporary sign.
Yeah, that is the case already, even before any amendment. The only change to whether or not you could have a temporary sign on a commercial property is in the amendment here, in which you would not be able to do that in the Lake Wiley sign district.
What was the Planning Commission's recommendation? I'm trying to understand what their recommendation was versus what was sent to, what council forwarded.
If you'll bear with me
And was it
one moment.
unanimous?
Yeah, so their recommendation was, instead of the draft to go from 1 large sign to 3 large signs, they said, let's split the difference and we'll recommend 2 large signs. And to make up for the trade-off there, they wanted to leave it at 8 total signs, so that's why they raised, in their recommendation, the number of small signs from 5 to 6. They wanted to limit the duration from 90 days in the draft to 45 days. It's 30 days in the current code. And their they had two final recommendations. One was to, and it wasn't a very specific recommendation, but they wanted to keep the temporary sign limitations consistent across all the districts, so that essentially the table would look the same across all districts. So the same number of signs, up for the same number of time at the same sizes. That was their recommendation. And the last was to disallow temporary signs from being located in site triangles, excuse me.
My recollection of and I'll ask you this, like before, prior to RECODE, there was no requirement that you have a permit or that you pay $100 to put a sign on your personal property. Is that correct?
No, so it depends on where you put it, how big it was, and what the sign said.
But I mean, prior to RECODE,
Yes,
there was
ma'am.
never a permit
There
or
was
a fee
permit,
requirement.
there was a permit depending on how big it was, what you were advertising, and that was the problematic part of the code that made it on its face more or less unconstitutional, is that it was based on content. So if your sign was advertising for a business, it was regulated differently from a political sign. So you can't do that, so that's why the code was updated. So
Did we actually charge for a permit for
yes,
anybody?
if you applied for a temporary sign permit, you had to pay a fee for us to review that.
Prior to RECODE?
Yes, so
What was that?
not every temporary sign required a permit. It depended on what you were doing and where you were doing it and how big it was. So the review fee for that would be $50 for the sign permit itself, $50 for the review. So it'll be $100 total.
Prior to RECODE, did we ever charge anybody?
To be honest, we never really got applications. People would just put them up.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, because my recollection is one of the reasons why this really came before us, because there was, it was represented to us that there was enforcement that was requiring a permit requirement and fees to be charged that weren't ever required before. Is that incorrect?
Yes, so when we receive a complaint, and we hardly ever get complaints about temporary signs, as I might have mentioned earlier, people kind of see them as fabric of their life, and especially in election season, they understand that at some point they're going to come down, so they don't generally file complaints. But if we do receive a complaint, and we did hear a few months ago, we're obligated to say this does not meet the code, so you need to get a permit if one is required.
Any other questions before we open up public hearing? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this request?
I'm Carla Pendleton, 5930 Charlotte Highway, Lake Wiley. As a business owner in the Lake Wiley Zoning Overlay District, the overlay is too restrictive already. It's no longer just the small area along Highway 49 near River Hills that's affected. The proposed prohibition on all temporary signs on commercial property reinforces the appearance of the Lake Wiley area as not being business friendly, and it would limit the ability of civic groups to get the word out about their events. Commercial property owners would have lost another property right, and business owners would not be able to publicly endorse a candidate running for office. By trying to stick it to the opposition, the instigator of the change in the ordinance would prevent churches and charitable organizations from advertising their fundraising events, and it would prevent businesses from being able to put out now hiring signs, grand opening signs, or signs advertising their specials. Churches that rent space in buildings for their services use temporary signs every weekend in Lake Wiley. Realtors wouldn't be able to put for sale or for lease signs on commercial property. Signs are already prohibited on the highway right-of-way everywhere by state law. The signs that are the problem are usually on the right-of-way. If you enforce the existing law that requires signs to be placed off of the right-of-way and enforce them not blocking the line of sight of drivers, that would really take care of the problem. Please don't adopt another rule for Lake Wiley commercial property owners that you wouldn't impose in your own districts. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have a comment.
we have a motion and a seconder. Do y'all want to go, or do you want to have comments? How do you want? Usually we
oh,
go.
go ahead.
I'm gonna start
Go that way.
following the
That's fine.
process.
So based on this one here, though, this is across the county, right? Correct? This modification?
So as the draft, and as I understand the motion to approve first reading, it would be across the board for all of the AOS, RES, SSC, and CI sign districts, but the Lake Wiley sign district would be different.
Any comments from the seconder? We'll move on. Mr. Roddy?
I just think it's all crazy.
Your comment?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Councilwoman Love, help us understand why.
So we're not going to ask council members questions. You can make your comments about what's before us, and that's how we're going to make sure each council member has an opportunity to speak and speak from their perspective of what the ordinance is in front of them.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Comments about the ordinance in front of us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm feeling a little disrespected right now. 2 times when I was asking questions or making comments, I got cut off. I don't mind being checked, but I feel like there's some tension that's in the room from a conversation I had last week, and it's carrying over into this meeting. And I got the stare down from you, Madam Chair, totally out of line. My question to staff is, or my comment now at this point, my comment is, feels like we're wasting time on something that's not going to move the needle. We have workshops, we have meetings after meetings over changing 5 to 6, 4 to 3, 2, whatever. We have more important things that we can be doing. I don't want to support something that's going to limit a business, limit a church. And you talk about, sometimes we sit up here and we talk about government getting in the way, overstepping the bounds. This is clearly something that I don't think we need to even be wasting staff's time, changing something from 5 to 6, 3 to 2, whatever it is. And if Lake Wiley wants to have certain things in place that goes against other county parts, maybe we need to look at not allowing such tight restrictions even in Lake Wiley. Because if we're going to do something, it needs to be kind of pretty much uniform when it comes to something as simple as a sign. If we can have 6 in Rock Hill, we should have 6 in Lake Wiley. If we're going to have 5 in Rock Hill, we should have 5 in Lake Wiley. We're talking about signs. We're not talking about tattoo parlors. We're not talking about bars. We're not talking about CBD shops. We're talking about signs that are typically political. If a car dealer wants to put out a sign going out of business, if a clothing store wants to put out, if a church, let's do something with substance, because this is not moving the needle here in York County. This is creating more havoc and headache for whether it's a business, whether it's a residential, I feel like it's a total waste of time. Let's do things that's going to move the needle, that's going to make us better. I really don't think this makes York County better. It makes it more controversial, and there's no way we can enforce this. Let's don't do things that we can't enforce, because it feels like we're just doing it as a feel-good and not something that's going to mean anything. So I don't want to support it in no way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm kind of glad I missed the workshops for this. It's a waste of time. So that's all I have to say.
I'm going to let every council member speak, and then we'll move forward.
So I'll answer what I think your question was. So the Lake Wiley overlay began as an overlay that defined our signage and our landscaping for what was the area between the Buster Boy Bridge and where Publix is now, the 557, 274, and 49 intersection. And as if that area doesn't look bad enough, two of the things that were very important to the residents, we had Don Long at the time and the chamber put together what they considered the gateway into Lake Wiley. That's the area that we wanted to look you know, we're not a municipality. We don't really want to look like a municipality. And so we wanted things to be less commercial looking. And the way to do that was to have trees that line the road and to have an area at the gateway when people come across that was a planted area, not a commercial looking area. And so over time, this has gotten somewhat watered down. So the two things that we would still like to cling to, in addition to the lighting ordinance that we passed in 2019, is we would still like for our area to not look like the Las Vegas Strip or something that you'd see down in Myrtle Beach. So it is very important to the Lake Wylie Chamber, who I spoke with today. It's also important to businesses who have followed these rules, because they know that it does make our community look more clean. It's more classy than trashy. And so it's important to the people that I represent. It's important to me. And it's a very simple thing. We just ask that the businesses not put banners. Listen, I can't put a banner on my store in Cherry Road without a permit and paying for it, and then I can only do it for a few days. But for many years, if you remember, across the street from my business was a car wash with scaffolding with a banner hanging on it, and it looked terrible. And so even the city of Rock Hill said, hey, we need to clean this up. So I'm going to say that we're not certainly not behind the times, but I think we were probably ahead of our times with an ordinance similar to something that they would have in what they would have had in Waxhaw or what they had in Hilton Head and some of those areas, Germantown, Tennessee, these areas where they really cared about how things looked and they wanted things to continue to look nice. Some of your areas haven't been built out like our 4.5 mile stretch has, and you're not seeing what we see, but I've taken pictures of the signs that are up just over the last 4 weeks. And one thing that has maybe been different about the Lake Wylie area is that the signs that are in the right of way, that's the worst part of what we have, but I have called on those signs consistently for the 7 years that I've been on council to have those picked up. So because it's that important. The calls that I get, the complaints that I get are from people saying, what are we going to do about these signs? And I make the call to the planning department and say, can we please do a sweep of the signs? And the Lions Club has adopted those roads. They come out, they keep the roads clear of trash and debris, and yet we've got signs everywhere. It's not what we want, and hopefully y'all will respect our wishes as fellow council members and help us keep it that way, because it's important. You've gotten emails today from business owners. You've gotten emails today from a lot of people, and you know, we would like to keep it where there are not additional signs added to a business, and it levels the playing field. When they come in, they get a sign, and everybody's got a sign. And you know, when Ms. Pendleton talks, I understand that she would love to put more additional signs out, but not until the current election. That was not really something that was done, and that building is now littered with signs, campaign signs. And you know, so I just think that it could be any kind of sign. We can't say, hey, realtors can put signs, or candidates can put signs, or you know, the gutter cleaning place can put signs. What we get in our area are signs from Gaston County and Mecklenburg County all along our roadsides. And to me, allowing businesses to put up a banner or a flag or any kind of sign like that, you know, it's like a used car. When you see one parked on a corner, the next day you're going to see 2, and then you're going to see 4, and it grows. And so you might not respect what we're asking, but I'm asking you to consider that. That it's been this way for a very long time, so we're kind of like bump. We're not looking to change things either. We just want to be sure that what we've had in place for a very long time remains in place. And there's no, excuse me. There's no change to, you know, not looking at residential, not trying to limit residential. I've never gotten a complaint about a sign in anybody's personal yard. So anyway, we're just asking that you respect what the chamber put together many years ago and what the people, the businesses, and the residents in Lake Wylie are accustomed to. There is no breaking of the rules there. There hasn't been any breaking of the rules.
Any other council member wish to speak?
I want to know where we at.
So the motion, let me just clarify this. The motion currently on the table is to approve what was already before the council beforehand. The Planning Commission has made a recommendation that's a little bit different. The Planning Commission's recommendation, correct me if I'm wrong, just so that I can make sure that whatever motions are on the table right now are clear.
Yeah.
The motion on the table right now is to approve what was presented to the planning commission. But what planning commission recommended is that we have one standard that applies across the board that eliminates the fees. You now do not have to pay a permit fee or pay $100 to put a sign in your own yard, and it makes the standards the same across the board. Is that correct? Just so I can make sure that I understand where council is falling on this issue when we make a motion.
Real quick, that's what the planning commission put forward, but what Jonathan shared earlier was the feedback y'all gave in a workshop, which is up there and it's loosening the restrictions. Right, so what y'all put a motion forward to earlier was in relation to the feedback that you provided at a workshop. There's another attachment that explains what the planning commission recommended, which is different, which is what you were just describing, Madam Chair. So I think that's where some of this confusion is, but it really is loosening the restrictions of the
I just want to make sure council understands, because I don't think some of us have studied the paperwork. So what council approved, and I think, honestly, I'm not trying to speak for everyone. I'm trying to get us all together on the same page, at least to where we are. So what I understood is that this came up because of RECODE. And we understood that RECODE included a requirement that none of us approved, which was to charge $100 for people to put signs on their property, which was never a permit requirement before. And if it was, we never enforced it. So that's why it came to us. That's one of the main reasons it came to us. But just so that we're clear when we're making a decision, council went to them and requested certain things. Some of them were 3 big signs. It was 5 smaller signs. And council said, you know, you can divide it up between this area or that area. What planning commission came back with is they said, we don't think you should have a different, to Mr. Roddy's point, we don't think you should have one sign, or we don't think you should have 5 different sign ordinances or 2. There should be one sign ordinance applied across the board. So the planning commission, just so we're clear, the planning commission agreed. We're not going to charge people $100. We're getting rid of the permit fee, which was the reason why it came to us. We are going to allow any property owner, whether you're a business or a personal, you get to have 2 big signs, 2 little signs, but nobody can have a sign in the right of way. So anybody that's in the right of way, we can go rip your signs up. Everybody agrees. All these, you know, folks doing the roof stuff, they can go get taken out. If you're in the 10-foot right of way, that stands. The question is, what planning commission recommended was that you treat them all the same, you have one ordinance, and that it be applied to residential or commercial across the board. And if I'm wrong on that, I want to hear from y'all, so that I don't want council to be confused about what we're voting about.
And Jonathan could put the planning commission's recommendations back on the screen maybe and just reaffirm
And that was
we
my
were showing those differences to y'all.
Right, and that was my interpretation of what planning commission, that's what I was expecting on this. So go ahead, if you can bring that back up.
But the motion currently on the table is to approve something so the planning commission said keep it standard. So if you're going to approve
Actually,
that.
that's not right. What they said was if it's good enough for Lake Wiley, it's good enough for the rest of the county. So you would be flipping to everybody to what's in Lake Wiley.
I'm not debating the merits here. All I want to know is how do I make sure that the motion is clear and that folks sitting up here understand what they're saying. So what I understood from staff is that planning commission recommended unanimously what I just said via a standard application across the board. We're not going to have 2 different ones. That they said commercials treated the same as residential. You get 2 big signs, 6 little signs, which was similar to the old one. We're not charging fees. All I want to make sure is that I'm clear on what planning commission recommended. Is that right?
Yes, that's consistent with the planning commission recommendation, which we have on page 179 in the agenda packet.
So I just want to be clear on something myself. I just want to be clear on the fact that you're going to 100% go with the planning commission, which we rarely do, by the way, but we're going to go with the planning commission meeting, what the planning commission came up with, rather than listen to the people of Lake Wiley who've had something in place for numerous years. You're going to wash that away and make that the same across the, you know, y'all don't have that issue because most of you have municipalities that allow this, but we're very different because we look like a municipality and it looks really bad. And what we're asking as a community is that we not have the same thing that's allowed throughout the rest of the county.
And I'm hearing you, what, my job is to make sure that folks understand what's in front of us is the current motion. That's all I want to make. Let's get the questions answered on the motion, and then we can debate the argument. I mean, that's the part I'm trying to get to. So if there are any other questions about what Planning Commission proposed and what went to council, I'd like for y'all to be able to make that comment before we move to the next.
What we have on the screen is what the planning commission recommended.
Is that what Planning Commission recommended?
No, sir. The 2 slides that I have on the screen here are the draft text that was provided to the Planning Commission and is in the packet. So I don't have slides for the Planning Commission recommendation, but they are listed in a summary format on your agenda sheet, and there is a memo in full on page 179 and 180 of the packet.
What's up now is what we all discussed and came up with in the March 12th workshop.
That's correct.
That's what we're looking at now. So you're looking at the basis of this is what council members talked about in that. I'm not going to talk over y'all, but I think I do deserve to be able to finish my sentences.
I don't think anybody's asking that. I think we're trying to
No,
make
I mean,
sure everybody's clear.
But y'all are talking. and
Mr. Audette, and I'll make this clear, Mr. Audette is asking, what is what Planning Commission presented to us? I want to make sure everybody's operating on the same sheet of music. What the Planning Commission recommended was for us to have one standard. They reduced what we suggested to 2 large signs, 6 small signs. This is what is in your packet, and this is what's frustrating, and I would like management to be clear when we come and have these things, because it is difficult to understand this, but I want folks to understand what Planning Commission recommended and what was sent to the council, what council sent over. My understanding is that what is in the packet is the Planning Commission's recommendation.
So both the draft text and Planning Commission's recommendation are in the packet. So the ordinance is.
I'm talking about this wording that's in our, so basically where it says, allow 2 large signs, allow 6 small signs, limit direct, actually what's in our packet. Is that what Planning Commission recommended?
So you all have a different version of that than I do from the public side. That's a minute track summary for all of you. And I'll pull that up in minute track now, just so I can be on the same page as you.
I think it's important that you go into the ordinance to see where the changes were made that y'all were going to vote on. And so planning director made the changes based on the workshop. So
That's correct. So I've got minute track open now, so that should be consistent with the summary sheet that you have in front of you. So those items 1 through 5, those are the Planning Commission recommendations. That's not the same thing as the draft text.
Okay, so my motion was based on what's in the packet here.
So I think what you're saying is you had intended to make the recommendation to approve Planning Commission's recommendation. I think that's what I'm hearing.
Well, again, I can modify my motion. Yeah.
If your motion was to approve that, and you were who seconded the motion?
I did.
Yeah.
All right, so I just want to make sure we're going to follow the process, and we'll have as much debate as we need to, but we need to get on the same page. The motion that you intended to make, was that to improve?
Yeah.
To approve what the Planning Commission adopted?
Motion to approve with the adoption of the Planning Commission recommendation as follows in the listed items.
Are you agreeable to the change as the seconder?
As it reads right here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the whole thing's crazy, but I mean, if we are gonna have it, I think it should be for the whole, not pick out.
So for purposes of just where we are as council, the motion on the table is to approve the recommendations from the Planning Commission, and those are outlined in what we have in front of us.
Yep.
That's where we are. That's how the motion has been
So
changed.
no regard for the Lake Wiley overlay and what's been in place for over 20 years.
I think now that we're on the same page about what the motion is and what it stands for, then then anybody who wants to continue to have conversation or debate on that, this is second reading. Mr. Roddy.
So we're going to stick with going from 40 down to 45. Didn't the Planning Commission make the suggestion? Who made the 30 to 90 days?
Planning
That's what
Commission.
I would like to
I
see
wanted
the
30
ni-
in Lake
I
Wiley.
would like to see the 90 days.
And the
across
rest of the
board.
council said 90.
So the 90 days was from the workshop, and 45 days is from the planning commission.
And
Can
the
I-
Lake Wiley overlay was 30.
Well, can I make an amendment to the motion to? Oh, pick up, okay.
Twice a year.
So it's
so
still
half
got
a
90
year.
days. All right, well, I'll leave it alone.
I'm just, listen, I'm just asking y'all to please keep this part of the Lake Wiley overlay in place. I mean, because I can't go back and explain to everybody that you've watered it down, and they're gonna be wanting to know. I mean, I had a long discussion with the chamber today, and what we had planned to ask for tonight was to approve what everybody wants for all these different areas, which are just different categories, and allow us some time to bring back exactly what we would like to see, if it needs to be updated or that. But, you know, if it's remaining as is, that's great. But if y'all aren't gonna, if you don't care what the people of Lake Wiley want, that's so disheartening to me. I don't understand that. What difference does it make to you? That's what I want to know. What difference does it make to you? The Lake Wiley overlay was set up as an area because we are very different from the rest of the county. We are much more dense and busy, and I just don't, I need to know, I'd like to hear from y'all. I mean, I just want to know, why do you not have any regard for what the people of Lake Wiley, who, by the way, are funding your fire departments in a lot of cases. We're funding your recreation in a lot of cases. We're paying for Catawba Bend because we're putting so many hospitality dollars in. Yet you are going to disrespect the people that I represent. Not only that, but me as the person that they've elected to be their voice. I just, how do you do that? What's your goal in doing that?
And this is only second reading, so whatever we do today, we got one more reading. I would like to hear from, I personally invite everybody from Lake Wiley who's in the overlay. I like to hear from them and maybe email everybody else what they think about their overlay, because like you say, it's their properties. If they think this rule is too tight for them, we should hear from them. Or if they think it's too loose for them, we should hear from them. And we have one more reading to be able to get to that. So I hate to pull something out from under Lake Wiley that's already been there, at least not without hearing from those businesses that will be affected by this change. Maybe the businesses want it, maybe they don't want it. I would like to hear from them.
And it's as much about the people. I mean, there's thousands of people there that one of the, you know where the complaints come from to the planning department? They come from Lake Wiley to the planning department, because the people in Lake Wiley care how it looks. We all care how it looks. We're in the process right now of redoing an area so that it'll look better. We've got trees that have died. We've been replacing trees. I mean, for you not to care about the corridor that comes from North Carolina into York County, it's appalling to me. It's so appalling to me.
We're going to allow each council member to speak before we call the motion. Anybody else who wants to speak on council?
I agree. I don't see why in the world we can't respect the people of Lake Wiley and their overlay. I mean, we each have a district that's very different from each other. We're not all the same. We're not all cookie cutters. Not everything is right for everybody. And at some point of the ball game, we're going to have to start respecting each other. So, I mean, I respect Tommy and certainly his agriculture. I respect Tom with his TK and his folks, and what would they think? You know, if you had an overlay for your people in TK, would they be happy not to respect them? So I'm just saying everybody needs to look at each other and their districts, and at some point we need to listen to the representative of that area. I've lived in my area for a long, long time, and I feel like I know my people very well. You know your people well, you know your people well. Each one of us could go down the line and say things that our folks are very passionate about. That's just the way I feel. I mean, I'm fine with whatever, the sign situation is. I don't see why we can't pull out Lake Wiley and their overlay.
Any other councilman want to speak before we vote?
Yeah, just, so Allison, looking at this proposal, because again, I think the idea of the planning committee was to come up with something universal across. So how far off is this from something you can accept?
So we're not going to ask each other questions. Everybody gets a chance to speak about their opinion, and then we can wait until third reading, because there is second reading, but this could go on all night long. And so I really would like, I'm asking council, if you have any other comments or debates about where we are, and I'm not trying, I get what you're saying, Mr. Roddy, that folks feel like they're getting cut. I'm trying to make sure, because we have plenty of other things on this agenda, I'm trying to make sure that we push through this agenda the same way, where everybody gets a voice, but that we clearly understand what's in front of us and aren't operating under some different opinion. So if there's a council member who hasn't spoken yet, who wants to make a comment about where they are in the debate, I certainly invite that.
I think everybody's spoken.
Call for the vote.
Well,
All right. Well,
my biggest thing is.
You got to
that-
call for the vote. Second.
call for the question. All right, we'll put it up, but I haven't had a chance to say what I'm going to say, and I want to have a comment. So here's where we are. I think council, I think this is getting turned into something that's not, that we can still, we need to unify under. What I think is important is that, is there a way for us to come up with a standard that is countywide? Because we don't need to have a sign ordinance in one district, then have another sign ordinance in another district. We need to figure out what's the best ordinance, and we need to stick to it countywide. I think that creates divide, and so that is why I support the motion currently on the table, but I am here to listen to the folks in the community. What I don't like is for false information. So we're getting emails from people. I'm getting emails saying, don't allow people to put things in the right-of-way. You can't put anything in the right-of-way. We are not supporting anything like that. This ordinance does not allow anything in the right-of-way. So anything in the right-of-way gets yanked up. Can't do it. The question is, are we, and the Planning Commission came up with this proposal that says 2 large temporary signs. They said put it 45 days, 2 times a year, 6 small signs, which was what it was before, but we actually sent to them 5. We said 90 days, but they are coming back with 45 days times 2, and do not allow it in sign triangles, and keep the temporary sign limits consistent across the county. I think this is an opportunity for us to come together. I think any time, and there was one person that emailed that said, hey, we want to make sure that the entrance to York County, when you come from North Carolina, from the Buster Boyd Bridge, that we present well. We want to present well everywhere across the entire county. And we want to make sure that an ordinance is across the board, so that we're not having folks enforce one over the other. So I am very much in favor of continuing to discuss this. I do support the Planning Commission, who was unanimous and comes from all of the districts, to say, hey, let's find a way for us all to come together. So I do support this. That doesn't mean that I don't support us tweaking this to get us to the right place, but I support what the Planning Commission has come up with, at least for second reading. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. Move now to old business. Rezoning action, consider second reading, case number 24-12, tax map number 25100000125, to rezone from AGC to RUD, 6.065 acre portion in District 3.
Motion.
We have a motion.
Motion to approve with the deed restriction for 1 dwelling per 3 acres.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can you say that again? Can you
I-
say the deed restriction again?
Deed restriction,
Is how much?
1 house per 3 acres.
So the motion on the table, just so council's all clear, is to approve the rezoning request to allow 1 house to 3 acres, 2 of those, 2 houses to a total of 6 acres, with a condition of a deed restriction that does not allow any further dwellings beyond that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that a change from the last time?
I don't think so.
Change.
Okay.
I think the deed restriction
Yeah.
is now of record. And I'll ask legal, has that been submitted? I mean, obviously, this is second reading. You would have to have that in hand as a condition of any approval.
Don't have that.
I think that's been submitted, so
Can I make one more statement?
absolutely. Any question? I just want to make sure the motion on the table, everybody understands the motion.
So, the gentleman, said that he had gone to visit with the neighbors, and I guess he indicated that they were fine with this, but all we've heard from are the neighbors that are not happy about this. So, I don't know where the disconnect is. I don't know who can tell us where the disconnect is. But he said he met with the neighbors and they were happy, I guess. But the neighbors that are here are not happy with it.
So just to be clear and so to be consistent, we're not asking questions of council, but I wanted to make sure that the motion on the table is clear as to what's being
I know
requested.
yeah, I know what the motion is.
And whoever has spoken on behalf of in front of council as to their objections to that.
Jonathan, can you pull up the plot of land, and can you confirm from the last meeting, I think 5 acres are AGC and 1 acre is RUD currently of the 6 acres, is that right?
So in answer to your first question, no, I cannot pull that up. I don't have access to the computer from over here.
No.
But, so when this came up for first reading and in the staff report, it had talked about the parcel being split zoned, a portion of it was already RUD. But in doing historic research of the property going back, the GIS layer in our information system did not match the historical mapping, the old black and white copies from several decades ago. So we've since had that corrected in our GIS system. The entire parcel is in the AGC district.
Okay, and then since recode in 2022, in this area, has council approved any property moving from AGC to RUD?
In this area, I'd have to consult the history on the, certainly not this parcel, but if you want to know any, I don't believe so, but I'd have to double check to be absolutely certain.
There are RUD zoned properties surrounding this property though?
There are directly adjacent and across the street as well.
Jonathan, I'm going, so go ahead.
Each council member gets the floor.
Okay.
One time.
So, is this rezoning consistent with the comp plan?
It is not.
Okay. I asked that question because we've had rezonings in the past that have been consistent. Staff has said yes, this council has said no. We have neighbors coming out, voicing their displeasure with doing this, with concerns about what's going to happen down the road. Same as we heard a little over a month ago. Similar rezoning, different outcome, different people pushing it. We hear people say, we want to respect what that council member wants to do in their district. I said the same thing a month ago. I guess I got disrespected because it didn't happen. And here we are, a little bit down the road. Staff is saying yes. Staff said yes a month ago. This council said no. Planning Commission said yes. Council said no. And I warned you to the neighbors coming out what was going to happen. Now you see the stars lining up to force this down your throat. Do something exactly that you don't want to do. You took the time to come out here to voice your displeasure when others maybe phoned it in and said, I'm fine with it. I respect people who will come out and stand up and take a stand of what they want or what they don't want. You guys have been here faithfully, voicing your displeasure faithfully, and I commend you for it. But I feel like it's not going to go in your favor, simply because the alignment that's on this council that votes together to push things through, votes together to stop things. You're going to be a victim tonight after coming out here numerous of times voicing your displeasure. And it's not right, because because this council shows partiality. How can
Mr.
you-
Roddy, I'm gonna step in and I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna call you out of order if you assert that certain folks on this council,
I ain't
whether
calling anybody's
individually
name.
or
Ain't calling
collectively,
anybody's
are doing anything.
Okay.
The
I didn't say-
issue that's in front of the
Okay.
council is the rezoning
Okay.
that, and comments
And you-
need to be germane
and
to
you knew
what we're
this was
talking
coming.
about.
You knew this was coming. That's why you gave me the stare down earlier, because you and I have had this conversation.
There's no stare down, Mr. Roddy, but I'll call you out of order if you don't keep your comments
Okay, well, my
to
comment is,
this
this
rezoning.
council shows partiality. It's done it a little over a month ago, it's gonna do it again today. And I'm not the one to bite my tongue. We had this conversation, you and I had this conversation. It'd be very hypocritical to vote this through after a little over a month ago. We were faced with a similar situation and this council said no. How can anybody on that side of the room vote yes for this one and voted no a month ago?
It ain't spot zoning
I
to start
didn't
with.
call you
Hold
name.
up.
I didn't say,
Hold
I
up.
didn't say anything about
This
the
is
spot
what we're
zoning,
gonna
and
do.
I didn't
Don't
call
point
nobody-
your
I didn't
finger at
call
me
anybody's name.
either.
I didn't call anybody's name.
I'm
I
calling.
didn't say nothing about a
You,
name.
you responded while I'm talking.
I'm gonna hold we're gonna hold this council out of order. You keep your comments to the issue that's the rezoning at hand.
Keep him quiet.
Mr. Atkins, both of
I'd
you,
like to
I'm gonna
see
call
you
you to
be
order.
quiet.
Everybody, every council member gets the floor for a few minutes, but if any council member attempts to accuse the other of any improper conduct, I will hold you out of order.
I didn't say improper.
So let's keep the comments to what's currently
Okay.
under
Okay.
for consideration. What is under consideration is a motion to approve rezoning to allow one house to 3 acres on 2 3-acre parcels of property. That's what's in front of us today.
I know what the motion is. You don't have to reiterate the motion.
Thank you, sir.
I mean,
Madam
how long
Chair.
I've been,
Nope.
I have the floor. And I have to say, when I'm speaking and someone else speaks, you need to check them.
I'm checking
Don't
both of
check
you.
me,
I'm checking
because
both.
if I have the floor, no one else
Mr.
should
Roddy,
interrupt. No one
Speak your
else should
comments
interrupt.
on this issue that's
This is
germane.
about this issue.
Talk about this issue, this rezoning.
Issue is, it is not right and not fair to those neighbors who voiced their opinion of displeasure with this being forced down their throat. Let's be consistent. I've been consistent with my voting, how I voted, check my record. But this is not being consistent from month to month. And I can show you the votes. I can show on paper, on video, who said what, when they said it, and what they applied to the other rezoning. But it's not applying here. Oh, we got neighbors come out, they don't want it. Well, we got neighbors coming out, they don't want it. I respect the fact that you and anybody else comes in this chamber and takes a stand for something or against it. Keep it professional. Because I've always been professional sitting up here. I'll never call anybody's name. You get to vote however you want to vote. But I'm voting no and standing with the people who've come out here and voiced their displeasure. But I'm going to extend an act of gratitude, grace and mercy to you. Not going to go your way. That's all I got to say.
Any other council member wish to speak?
But it's going to get close to your way. And at the top of our organizational chart are the citizens of York County. And we fail them. When we sit up here and we talk about, I'm going to go back to the sign issue for just a minute. When we
No,
talk
we're going to
about-
keep our comments germane to the issue that's in front of council. The issue in front of council is whether or not to rezone these properties
Excuse me.
pursuant to a deed.
I got it.
No,
I
ma'am.
got it.
We have an issue
my
before council that is a deed restricted 1 acre to 3 acre lot, 1 unit to 3 acres. That's what's in front of council.
Anytime we sit up here and we make a decision based on what we think is best or easiest for York County, and we fail to take the people into consideration, whether they be residents in an overlay or whether they be residents sitting in a council meeting in hopes that this council is going to do the right thing for them. You know, we're talking about 2 houses here. We're talking about multiple people. And my question is this. I don't know, I meant to ask this question earlier. But across the road from these properties are multiple properties that are zoned RUD. And what I wonder is if those same parcels are connected to this same applicant or this same property owner, because if they are at a small subdivision already. They've already subdivided a little bit at a time to get to the point of what a small subdivision would be. I don't know the answer to that, but I've sat in those seats. And that's why I was elected to sit in this seat, because I understand I've always backed the people, and I will continue to back the people. And I'm going to still try and hold the rest of you accountable to support the people. Do the right thing. And when you do the right things happen. The right things fall into place. And I think we've gotten a little off track in this meeting tonight, but I think we've also gotten a little off track as a council. I think we've gotten a little off track as a county. I can see we're getting back on track with a lot of things related to the county. But it is very difficult for me to sit here and bite my tongue and not get upset and not just, I mean, I can't even believe what we have become. It is embarrassing to me as a council member. And so I hope that we will all look at this. I hope we'll all do better. And I hope when we get home tonight and we put our heads on the pillow, we think about what we've said tonight, about how important things are to us, and maybe in you know, leaving out the people that we actually represent as a whole. You know, we sit up here and we tell everybody we represent all of York County, not just a district. That doesn't mean that you do the same thing for all of York County. It means you look at things by district. You look at things, when you have to, you look at things by neighborhood. You look at things by street. You look at things by individual person sometimes. And if we don't have that flexibility, how do we expect our planning department and other departments to ever have the flexibility that the people of York County deserve? I'll be voting no on this tonight myself.
Any other comments, questions?
Yes, so in regards to this, again, you know, I'm going to speak in regards to how I look at things. I look at things with a lens of what is fair, what's balanced. There's no good boy club up here, there's no good girl club up here. We individually make decisions on what we feel is best based on how we look at things. So I just want to be really clear when there's other comments that are made that are very wide and broad, that I don't aspire to those kind of comments. We're here to give our best and to give, we look individual at each item where we think one might fit and one may not fit. We have our lens, we understand what we're looking for, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that we do it with integrity and we stand here for what we feel is best for each situation. So I want to share that with y'all.
Any other council members have any comments?
I do. Okay, when we have a situation that requires community members to come in and speak on what's happening, because they live there, I tell my people, I say, you have got to come. There's no other choice. Council members love to hear from the communities. I can remember last year when we had a community come in and spoke very passionately about a situation on a rezoning. And honestly, I think most of us had tears in our eyes when they were talking. It was one of the most beautiful moments I can remember being on council. I was so proud of all of us because we stood with that community, and they came in, and since then, since that very moment, anything that is in my area that is up for like public hearing or whatever, because we've got something coming up in a few minutes, I tell them, you have got to come. You have no option. You have got to come, because guess what? Those folks on county council, those members on council, they will hear you and they will see you and they will pay attention to what you're saying. So therefore, and I have a heart for agriculture. I love the fact that we have a whole part of our county that's agriculture. It's just amazing to me how we, And we've got to keep that. We've talked and talked and talked in workshops and all along how important it is. I think we even had a committee formed. I don't even know what happened to that. How to keep agriculture strong in York County, because it's critical. It is critical that we keep agriculture strong. So I can't do anything but say to myself, the 2 points I have that I'm going to stay true to, and that is agriculture and when the community comes out. Those are the 2 points I'm going to stay true to tonight.
Anyone else? Mr.
Me.
Atkins.
Well, first of all, in a minute, Josh, I want you to elaborate on how we got and from us talking to the consistent. Well, first of all, I want everybody to know that I own more land than anybody up here and probably out here. Second of all, I want you to know I make my living in agriculture. Third, would you be surprised if I told you that my whole farm's in RUD? Would you be surprised at that? It is. Also, I did a little research and I told Mr. Hammond them exactly why I thought this needed to happen. And it's got nothing to do, they're RUD and this is more land. But there's a road frontage issue here, and there's land back behind that somehow or another I was trying to get it stopped so that land couldn't be developed. Now, ain't nobody gonna tell me what I am and I ain't for, because like I said, I make my living farming in RUD. Well, I'm sitting there thinking, and I don't know if any of y'all realize it, when I put a pasture in, I have to clear land. I have to clear the land. I can't grow grass in trees. When you put a subdivision in, you got to clear the land. If I put a cornfield in, I have to clear the land. RUD and AGC are so close, and actually you get more tree saved when you are in RUD. Now, prove me wrong on that. But the first thing also that I want you to know is the majority of agriculture land, and I've stood up for more conservation of it than anybody. But the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of land in agriculture, but the people that live on it don't even plant a tomato plant. It's nothing but trees standing there. You can't get them. They ride by my dairy and complain about, well, that calf's there, blah, blah, blah. And the truth of the matter is, Americans don't want to work hard and farm anymore. But don't tell my family that we don't. And there's not nobody up here, nobody that can stand up and take up for agriculture or say anything to me about agriculture. And there's a lot of people in here that can talk and prove for me that I'm telling the truth. But I had a reason for why I was doing it. Also, to the question of what happened weeks ago, that was spot zoning. This is not spot zoning. There's more RUD in this area. But now, Josh, will you tell me where my constituents got confused and threw them on the path of why this here all doesn't seem right? Because it confused all of us.
So in answer to your question, Councilmember Atkins, Jonathan and I spoke with Mr. Hammond. It's good to see you, sir, and we apologized that there's been multiple points of confusion. And so we talked with Mr. Hammond about those points of confusion. Jonathan mentioned one earlier, which was the split zone status, which we were wrong on. The other point of confusion, I think that Mr. Hammond alluded to, just so everybody knows what he was alluding to, was what it was before recoding, rezoning, and recode, which everybody refers to as recode. So there has been a change in that. Now, y'all haven't talked about that tonight, but that was part of the confusion. We explained that. We also talked to Mr. Ham about what is the potential for the other lots behind these properties. And so that is a part of all of this as well. So, but we apologize and we're sorry for the confusion. And Jonathan and I both want to do better, and we will do better.
Yeah, and may I also add this, that to start with, I do not like taking people's rights away. Nobody's rights away. Because I don't want my rights took away. And whether we're talking about this sign ordinance, I could care less about signs. Signs ain't never bothered me or nothing, but I ain't gonna tell somebody that on their own land that they can't put one up, just like I ain't gonna tell somebody, if you're not harming or detrimenting, this man's got a right and this man's got a right. This has gotten totally blown out of proportion. It started out wrong, and I'll still stick to my motion because I know why I'm doing it, and I hope from what I told Mr. Hams and them that they understand why I'm doing it. Because there's road frontage there, and there's more land back there. And who knows who else will come in there if this deal goes through. I'll take large lots with a house on any day before I would 4 houses to an acre in that other. I put everything back in my district in agriculture and RUD. So anybody that wants to question why I'm doing it, I just sit here and told you why I'm doing it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, very quickly. So Jonathan, April 1st meeting, you said that this piece of property that has 6 acres has a by right opportunity to build 2 dwellings on the property. It's just the second one has to be 50% of the first.
So that was the mistake that Mr. Edwards referred to. So the applicant had stated that they could, with the 6 acres, put 2 homes on it by right. While you can put 2 homes by right on a parcel in AGC, you need at least 10 acres to do that. So that was my omission on that part, to not reference the 10-acre minimum requirement for the 2 principal dwellings.
All right, so staff's recommending, the planning commission's recommending, even though this is not consistent with the 2035 comp plan, you're still recommending it. And you're recommending it because there are other parcels around it that are zoned RUD.
Yes, sir.
So, and then, I guess every decision that we make is gonna have some discretion in it. Because when citizens come up and speak in favor or not in favor of something, we have to take that into consideration, right? So there is discretion in these decisions. We try to be as consistent as possible in our decision making. And I can promise you that none of us are being influenced by anybody asking us to vote yes or no. For me, that's not happening. But I hear that consistently from other members up here too. And there's not really a coalition to coalesce together to approve this or do something. So you hear the vote tonight, and I think each person up here has voted their conscience.
I think everyone has
Madam-
spoken. I really think everyone's spoken. If we can move on to the vote, Mr. Atkins.
Ma'am.
I know this is your district, but I really would ask that we just move forward with the vote.
I was just wanting to request that ADU be explained from Jonathan about the 2-acre deal and what can happen.
Well, here are my comments. I support this rezoning. I'm actually not aware of anybody that's come before this council in any recent times where they have requested 1 house to 3 acres, that we've rejected that. 1 house to 3 acres. We're talking about 1 house to 3 acres, 2 of those. My understanding is that, number one, the entire time I have sat on this council up through RECODE, we have allowed 2 principal uses to 5 acres plus an accessory use in AGC, and that changed with RECODE. And I can tell you right now, that is not something I supported. That is not something that I was informed of. And I'm going to ask that we revisit that and that be laid out publicly and that we vote on that and that be laid out, because when we made a vote on RECODE, we said we were not changing densities for folks. We were leaving it exactly the same. In this particular instance, I support this rezoning. And this rezoning is specifically limited to 1 house to 3 acres, which the people that I've spoken with that have called me live on the exact same amount. And I'm not aware of anybody that's come to us asking for 1 house to 3 acres that we've denied. Somebody can prove me wrong, but let me look at that. But this is also subject to a deed restriction, which means that the property that is before us cannot be developed into anything more than 1 house to 3 acres. It cannot. That is a condition of the motion that has been made as a condition of the motion of this. And as I understand it now, even under the existing zoning calculations, someone is allowed 2 dwellings to 5 acres. We're talking about 6 acres. 2 dwellings are allowed on 5 acres, even under current recode. Isn't that true, Mr. Bueno?
As long as one of them is an accessory dwelling.
So 2 dwellings are allowed on 5 acres. This is not allowing any addition, everybody's spoken, I'm wrapping
I
up.
have a question. I have a question. I have a
I
legitimate
think
question.
we still have a 3rd reading.
I have a legitimate question.
What's the question?
John, how long have you been on staff?
5 years.
Has it been, to your knowledge, has AGC been 2 homes per 5 acres?
So you could, before and after recode, you can do 2 principal homes on a single AGC lot. The difference between prior to recode and after is that now there's a minimum of 10 acres in order to get the second home.
Now, the difference
Hang on,
between
hang on, let's
accessory-
clarify this. If we're gonna open this back up, let's be real clear. Mr. Buono, before recode, you were allowed 2 principal units
No.
plus an accessory unit on
Yes.
5 acres. Is
Yes.
that correct?
It is.
In AGC?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you have 20 acres, how many houses can you put?
2.
2.
2 principal plus the.
Prior to recode, and here we go, we still have 3rd reading, so folks can ask all of their questions, and I encourage council to ask all the questions they intend to ask. I have asked mine because I want to be consistent, as Mr. Roddy suggests, but I think these questions need to be asked by council before we get to 3rd reading. The point I'm making is prior to recode, we said you could have 2 principal units plus an accessory unit on 5 acres.
Yes, ma'am.
And now we have taken that back to say you can only have 1 principal unit and potentially an accessory unit. That is not, and I'm just going to say, that is not what I understood we did with recode. If we are going to make that change, it needs to be hang out on the clothesline. People need to understand, because there are people who bought AGC property that want their children to build their house on that. And at all times, whenever and I'll go back, you can look at, when I say we're not allowing any higher density than what's allowed by right, I've always said 2 units to 5 acres, because that's constantly what I've understood that was. So we do need to get to the motion, because we have other items up here. And I encourage council to continue to ask the questions to get the information back from staff. This doesn't increase density than what's allowed by right. This allows 1 house to 3 acres, and it is deed restricted to only allow 1 house to 3 acres. So I fully support this request. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Raise your hand for no, so I have a record.
Debbie? Will you
Did you
say
say no? Right, okay.
She said raise your hand.
Oh, raise your hand.
Yep, I just want to make sure we have the record of that. Motion carries 4-3. Moving now to item number 2 of old business. Council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 155 zoning code to modify separation requirements for certain uses in the Lake Wiley zoning overlay, to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters relating thereto.
Motion to approve the planning commission's recommendations with 2nd reading moved to June 3rd, so we'll have time for staff to provide input on this ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, first of all, this is a really big topic for Lake Wiley, and I don't really appreciate you jumping ahead of me with a motion. So it's not the first time, and it surely won't be the last, but out of respect, which there's not a lot of up here anymore, there are some changes that I would like to make to the 660-foot separation, and I'm gonna wait until the 2nd reading and public hearing to suggest those.
Typically, we go to the council member who made the motion.
Well, I said it on the motion, really. I think we need to have input on this. All of us probably have some ideas to tweak the ordinance. There's been public input that has been provided to me. Some of that makes a lot of sense. I didn't get it until this weekend. Didn't have time to share it with council, because I need to go through it. Time's not on your side when you put your packet on Thursday. You don't have a lot of time
Mr. Ivy?
I just want to know if Councilmember Love is in agreement with the motion.
I'm not.
And going back to some things that was touched on earlier, you know, clearly this is in Lake Wiley. Clearly this is Allison's district. You know, she should have been given an opportunity to make the motion and lead the way. And if anyone had anything to the contrary to input, it should have come after she's been given the opportunity. I think, like she clearly stated, you know, we got to get back to the respect up here, which has been gone for a while. We get nowhere with jumping ahead of motions in front of a council member whose district it is, who fights, and I clearly state, fight like hell for her district. We can't continue to do this over and over again. We'll say one thing and do something else. Clearly she's not in favor of it, and I won't support. I won't support it the way it was presented. So I'm gonna vote with Allison on this one.
I just want to reiterate, there is one part of this that I do think could be loosened up some, and that is one of the uses. I do not think that drive-through windows is a big issue, so I am willing to just concede on that. But the difference in any of you and me is that I live in District 2. I was at the input meetings for a very long time. The final input meetings during RECODE, I did not attend those meetings because I did not want to be an influence at those meetings. There were Zoom meetings. There was a lot of input put into this. And, you know, you've got a lot of maps and things in your book right here, but you got to look at it and you got to try and figure it out. Those of us that live there, you can point to a spot and we know exactly what's there and what's beside it and how many oil change places there are, how many storage units. And again, I just want to say that the Lake Wiley overlay exists for a purpose. And, you know, this is a small area plan that Chairwoman Cox and I recommended that we went to an association meeting, we came back and we thought that small area plans were a great idea. And here we are a few years later with her still in place and nobody saying anything and mine being questioned from beginning to end. And I have a really hard time with this because it's taken a long time to get these things in place. I'm going to credit our former chair, Michael Johnson, now senator, for helping me get these things done for my area. And for us to get new council members and people that maybe only drive through Lake Wiley every once in a while, you know, it's very important to the people of my district that we uphold what they've asked us for. And again, I'll just ask, why are you not willing to do that? I need to know, and the people are going to want to know, why are you not willing to uphold what we've asked for? These things make sense for our area. And you know what? One day, they're going to make sense for a couple other areas up here. And so I'm so frustrated because I'm willing to help anybody up here with things that they have happening in their district. Fort Mill, Tom and Debbie and I, you know what, we see a lot of what's probably headed your way. And yet, I mean, it's kind of surprising to me that someone wouldn't try to stop it in the next area, but I certainly would. I would defend things in your area and help you to the nth degree. But when we sit up here and I feel undermined, I feel like there's communication behind the scenes. I know there's communication behind the scenes. And it's things that you are doing sometimes that are, you know, you're not undermining me. You're undermining the people. You're undermining York County residents and York County businesses. And if you think the oil change places in Lake Wiley want more oil change places, you're very wrong about that. They don't. Competition's good to a point. So, you know, it sounds like the next couple meetings are going to be very Lake Wiley oriented, and I apologize to everybody in advance for that. But if you just respected the people that are elected and not barely elected, but very elected a lot of times that are sitting up on this council, it would make so much difference. It would cut down on our time sitting up here arguing back and forth. you know, we are as divided as we have ever been. And the reason for that is very obvious tonight. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to get the video of what we've talked about tonight, and I'm going to show that in my district. And people are going to show up here, and they're going to have to fight again. We're going back to the days past when people from Lake Wylie and frankly Clover, there's some stuff coming up for Clover that's going to be an issue, I understand. And so here we are, an area of Lake Wylie, an area of York County that continues to be unheard, and we kind of got spoiled over the past few years because we were heard, and there were council members here that backed things up and supported things, and everybody walked out of here, residents walked out of here happy and excited with York County Council, and we took a turn, and people are not happy. People are not happy now. They're not happy, and I'm not happy. So I'm asking you to just rethink what you're doing and what you're saying and the things that you're causing in a district that I've put a lot of time and effort into. And, I know, only a couple of you looking at me, I get it, but next couple meetings you can face the people, and you said you want to listen to the people, you're willing to listen to the people is what I understand. You know, we've never made such a big deal about what the Planning Commission has done. We've normally just kind of ignored them. And what a shame that is too. But I do think there's some differences of opinion on what they said. And again, I don't know. I don't know where I go from here. But people first. People over politics.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Well, I just, and I know this is, again, we've got 2 more readings on this. But I thought the meeting that we had when all the people came in and spoke, you had a lot of input from the people that came from Lake Wylie. So, from what I gathered from that meeting, because we had the room filled with people from Lake Wylie, and what I gathered from that was that there was transcripts taken from that meeting and given to planning, and let planning look through it and look at a balanced approach based on the transcripts from this room full of people that spoke. So that's the way I'm interpreting this. I know we get 2 more readings, so we'll see what comes out of it. But again, that's where I'm interpreting what this came from was the transcripts from when we had this room full of people.
I just want to clarify one thing about that. I hope you're saying you're going to listen to the people in the end, but that Planning Commission got 80 emails. 79 of them were not in favor of what's written here today.
Yeah, again, all I know is we had a room full of people and there was a lot of feedback. So, that's what we heard a lot of feedback, and I think that's what was being taken back to planning. So, again.
Madam Chair, there we go. I think it's working now. I just want to let you know my microphone apparently has not been working, but can they hear me in there now? Okay, I got to eat it. Sorry.
No wonder you hadn't said anything tonight.
Hasn't heard.
Actually, I reached over there and unplugged it. He just didn't see me do it.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Did you want to add anything, or just,
No,
you're back online?
Sure
Okay.
my phone's working. I'm getting text messages, staff's telling me that nobody can hear me.
Okay. Anyone else from council?
No comment.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I want to know what I'm looking at here. Why do I have 4 things, and which one of these things is being proposed?
Not the one in your packet.
Huh?
My understanding, well, let's be clear. The motion on the table is to approve what the Planning Commission approved. And was the Planning Commission's recommendation unanimous?
Madam Chair, it's not the one in the packet.
Yes. So if there's a question on what the Planning Commission recommendation is.
Was it unanimous?
Yes.
Okay. And the recommendation, basically the motion on the table, as I understood the motion being made, was to approve first reading as the Planning Commission approved it. Is that right? Did I hear that correctly?
That is correct.
All right. So Jonathan, if you can explain what the Planning Commission requested.
Yes, and this is in full detail in your agenda packets on page 200. So they had 4 recommendations. The fourth was a recommendation to do a new corridor plan, but germane to the text, they had 3 recommendations. The first was to maintain the existing requirement that each use must be separated from all other uses. And then the second was to maintain the existing 660 feet separation distance instead of increasing that to 1,000. And then the third was more of a concurrence. They concurred with the amendment that allows a proposed use on the same lot or an adjacent lot with a cross-access easement.
So I'm clear. The motion on the table to approve the planning commission's recommendation, all those things that you listed were things that they agreed to unanimously?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, was it one of these?
Those are maps, so those are exhibits that staff produced because council had requested maps to show where these uses are and how that related to the distances. So what you're looking at in terms of the maps, the blue shading is the current ordinance. The multicolor rings are how it would be enforced if the draft text, again, not the planning commission recommendation, the draft text would be enforced. So the planning commission recommendation would be to go back to that blue color.
But I think you mentioned also the 660 would still be in place with this recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments from council?
I have a comment real quick.
Mr. Roddy.
I know we're leaning on what the planning commission has said, If we're gonna start hanging our hat on solely what the planning commission says, let's hang our hat there. Let's don't do the back and forth thing, because I hear planning commission said, but we've had several instances where planning commission said yes, council said no. We got to pick and choose where we're going to be at, and not say, well, I personally like this, so I'll lean on the planning commission. I think it's still our responsibility. We're accountable. The comp plan is a tool that we can use, but it's not the gospel. Planning commission is a great body for us. Does a lot of homework, vets a lot of stuff for us. We can't just hide behind whatever the planning commission. We're chosen to do the work, and if the planning commission recommends something that we don't necessarily like as a council or as a council member for our district, then we have every right to make those adjustments. And I think that's what Councilmember Love is trying to get through to us. My only comment is let's do the work. Let's hammer out and hear from her, and continue to listen to her and her district and those constituents that come out for her, and not just hide behind what the planning commission, because we went with the planning commission numerous times, and we've gone against them. So let's pick where we're going to be when they make a recommendation. If we're going to say whatever the planning commission sends to us, we're going to stick by them and do it. Let's do it. Or if we're going to have that latitude, but let's not put our foot back in that water and get behind them when we want to, and not go with them when they say something that we don't personally agree with. That's just my comment.
Madam Chair, in the motion, the reason I made the motion the way I did, to defer it to the third, it gives us 1 month, because this is a serious topic, and it needs serious consideration. But it gives us a month for those of us that have an opinion on this. You can come up with it on your own, you can come up with it with other people sharing your information with you. It gives you a month to share that with staff, share it with other council members, so we come into the second reading more informed than we are tonight.
Are there any other comments from other council members who have not spoken? So I'll approve first reading. This is something we deferred to the planning commission, and my understanding was that they were supposed to be provided the entire transcript of everything that was said, and we gave a full public hearing here, and we asked for all of the emails and all of the public comments to be made available to the planning commission before they made their decision. My understanding is they deferred it one time to consider everything, And that this is their first response to that. That was unanimous, even from the folks who are represented in that district. And so I'm going to allow, and I support first reading of this. That doesn't mean that we're done. That means that we're looking at what they heard and why they approve it. They did keep my understanding is they kept the 660 in place. They rejected a use-to-use, meaning a drive-through to a drive-through doesn't kick each other out. They still kept the retaining a oil change kicks out a drive-through, which was some contention that council has, but that's what they approved. They applied the separation of only new uses, which is probably the biggest thing, that there were folks who didn't realize that they had been put into a non-conforming use. So folks that were operating existing now were put in a non-conforming use. That has been fixed by the number 2. And that if you have a use, for instance, a car wash and a gas station in the same lot, as long as you have cross easement access, they were suggesting that you approve that. So I think the fact that they considered that and that they were unanimous in that, even the folks who are in that area, I will support first reading. And I agree that there's going to be additional conversation on that moving forward, but I will support first reading on that, at least, you know, to get us through this. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Move now to new business. Item number 1, council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend the York County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 151, flood damage prevention, to adopt the Regent Park flood study and accompanying maps, to establish the Regent Park floodplain overlay district, to amend and adopt higher standards above the National Flood Insurance Program's minimum standards based on a no adverse impact approach to floodplain management for development within the Regent Park floodplain overlay district, to revise chapter definitions, section references, and other de minimis clarifications, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Cloninger, you're the motion maker. Would you like, if anybody's going to comment, would you like to comment first?
I am just very anxious that this go through for my folks. I'm tired of those poor houses that get flooded. They've been flooded 4 times, and the no adverse impact approach is very important to the community. We are, it's been a long time coming that Regent Park get some attention, much needed attention. It was severely overdeveloped by previous councils, and now we have the opportunity to set things right for the area and really give them the opportunity to feel like that this council, not only the council, but the community, I mean the county as a whole, cares about those folks. And I'm just really, I ask for you to support this.
Any other comments?
I have a question. Jonathan, when this was originally proposed to the Planning Commission, it included additional areas. Were they in support of all of those areas?
So this particular chapter is not under the review of the Planning Commission.
It didn't come before Planning Commission?
No.
To piggyback on your question, that's okay?
Yeah.
All right. I would ask that the amendment be amended to make Regent Park priority number 1, but for staff to determine what are the rest of the priorities in York County from number 2 on down to the last priority, and then an action plan on how we're going to go put studies in place for the other areas that are in the flood areas.
So I think the current motion on the table is to move forward with Regent Park.
Yes. I'm asking for the same, just in addition to.
I think the question, just help me remember this, Jonathan, when this came before council as a workshop, it was represented to try and do this in certain areas. and I'm not putting words in your mouth, I just want to make sure we're clear. The only folks that were actually given written notice about the ordinance were the folks in Regent Park. Is that correct?
Yes, at council's request, the property owners that were impacted by the Regent Park flood study were specifically notified about the
Okay.
ordinance.
So if there is something that needs to go beyond Regent Park, we would need to give written notice to the folks who are impacted by that. And I think council did say at our previous workshop that we're going to start with this because we know there's an issue here and they've already had several meetings and they've already been specifically notified. The other provisions, and I just want to make clear because I don't know that we need an amendment on this, but that management is looking into the rest of what Stormwater requested and that folks will be given the same courtesy of specific information before we take the next step. I just want to make sure that that was clear from the workshop.
The way the ordinance is currently constructed was after the motion at the previous first reading for this item. So if there's a desire to contemplate taking this approach to other areas of the county and making a prioritization list, that's certainly a work program item that council can request of management and staff to undertake that. That wouldn't necessarily necessitate a change to the text of the ordinance. But if an expansion to the applicable areas were added to the code, then yes, that would require notification and a new ordinance.
So if we can, I mean, I think a priority is to go ahead and push this one forward, and then in non-agenda comments, we can ask council ask staff to continue to move forward. If there are other areas that you think is applicable, that that they would be given the same courtesy as the folks in the other districts have been given before we take that action.
And just to add, Madam Chair, that could be a discussion related to the budget as well, because there's probably going to be budget implications to that, and we could talk about that at one of
Okay.
the workshops as well.
I'm happy for that to be referred to the budget workshop. Make sure that we're clear on that.
Yeah.
I think the point of what I understood from what council action took previously was we know there's an issue here. These folks have already been notified. They've had an opportunity to come and appear before council, and there's no reason to slow that down. We'll go ahead and implement this program as it stands, and then we can use it as a benchmark for moving forward and making sure other folks get the same courtesy of notice if that comes up. Any other comments from council on the main motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We have already addressed number 2. Item number 3, new business, council to consider first reading by title only of an ordinance to establish operating and capital budgets for the operation of the county government of York County for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2024, to provide for the levy of taxes for York County for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2024, to provide for the expenditure of tax revenues and other county funds, and provide for other fiscal matters relating to county government.
A motion to defer to May 20th meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. So with the additional additions to our packet tonight that we received, along with some other information that we'll get in an upcoming workshop, I think it's prudent and practical for us to give ourselves a little additional time to see what was added in tonight, to look at what we get back in our next workshop, and then we commence our first reading May 20th.
So I have a question. What do you know that we don't know? I mean, why, we've always,
It's first reading.
first reading, we've always approved that title only.
There was additional information added into our packet tonight.
Where?
So
It was
one of the
slid-
things
it
the
was-
staff did is we had a few catches in the budget message that we edited, and we provided new copies tonight, so.
Yeah.
Y'all came in late, so I wasn't able to update your books.
So, but enough that we need to defer the,
No, we added a bullet point. We had 3 fees that got adjusted. We had the landfill typical fee, the fees, it was water and sewer fees, and then also we added another bullet to include parks. That was the largest thing, the substance that got added to the budget message. And so, I mean, I certainly, my hope would not be to defer because of the parks fees being added. I think Mike's going to discuss that. Mike is going to discuss that at the budget workshop. And in moving that, we now have no room for error to make the June 30th deadline as well. So again, the budget has always been presented the first meeting in May by title only. It'd be my recommendation that we proceed with title only. And if after the workshop you want to defer second reading and don't get your questions answered, that's always an option council has. But if you do it now, you've locked yourself in and you don't have that flexibility.
Exactly. Madam Chair.
Ms. Roddy.
I was basically going to say the same thing. You know, first reading of the budget, obviously there's always changes from the first reading to the final reading, and locking ourselves in by deferring it to the next council meeting does tie our hands that if something does come up that's significant and we want to take a closer look at it, we wouldn't really have time to do that unless we called another special call meeting. So I would respectfully ask that we approve first reading just to keep us on that time track to have that leeway down the road. Because if we handcuff ourselves today, move it to the next meeting, I think it kind of, I mean, been here 13 years and I've never seen first reading of the budget pushed back just because new information comes up right before the meeting. So I would respectfully ask Mr. Audette to withdraw his motion and make a new one to approve the budget so that we stay on track.
So, again, there's a reason why I'm requesting this, because I think that there's still more information we're going to glean from our workshop that's going to make our first reading much more valuable and much more informative. That's my purpose.
I'm voting.
I just don't think that's how, I'm just going to say that's not really how it works. This is just kind of to get it out of the way and get into the meat of things. So anytime we've approved first reading by title only, that's when the work begins, and all of our workshops are packed. That's why we have the workshops. They're packed with, you know, more detail and changes and discussions. And I mean, this is kind of just a protocol thing to get us into the budget season. This is concerning to me that we would defer a title only. I just feel like I feel like there may be some underlying something that's. I mean, I don't know why we would do that.
So
let's vote it down and move on.
So the comment of underlying is disturbing when you use that, because there's not an underlying, there's a reason why I asked it.
Yeah.
It's not underlying like it's underhanded, okay? This is where the language in which you make comments by, there's purpose and reasons why we make comments. They don't have to be underlying or there's some type of agenda associated.
I just don't understand. It's title only. So I just don't, I mean, that's why I said.
Let me ask the question. So the motion that's on the table is to defer it for a first reading to May 20th. Does deferring this to May 20th, are we still able to pass the budget timely?
Depends on what comes up.
You would need.
I mean, we still have 3
You would
readings.
need that last meeting in June to do that. When the way it's set up now is conceivably could be the first meeting in June. So that's what.
Why is the question?
The budget calendar has a gap in the meetings to allow, if additional information comes up or something dramatic were to happen, move it. Again, first reading has always been title only. There's no motions allowed to be made. There's no changes to be made. It's title only. So if there is anything, any additional information you have, you could defer second reading after the budget workshop next week. But I would encourage y'all to discuss this new information, whatever that might be, at the budget workshop next week. And then if you feel you need to defer second reading, because that's where second reading is where you make motions. You can make motions there, you can change things. That would be the time, in my opinion, to move that meeting back. If there's this additional information, council as a whole wants an additional meeting to digest it. But if you defer it now, you take away all your flexibility right now to squeeze in another meeting. You have none. You would have to do a special called meeting if this new information would delay anything.
Well, can I just go on record to say what I do like about what I've seen and heard so far is that I like the fact that we're always looking to improve our position with our employees. I know one of the first things I always ask during this budget process is, how are we taking care of our employees? Because time and time again, they are the face of York County. They're the ones that make this thing go. You know, we come in on Monday night and we do what we do, but the faces of York County are the men and women who sit at the windows, go out and do inspections, who do everything for us, from the landfill to public works, sheriff department. Everybody puts in a lot of work, so I always want to make sure that we have and look forward to doing something to make sure people feel good about coming to work for us. We all have a job to do, but I think those men and women we saw here tonight with the correctional officers do a fine job for us. So I always ask, are we able to provide a raise to keep up with what we've seen over the last several years, whether it's inflation, cost of living, or people just price gouging because they know people need certain items in the household. So looking forward to taking care of raises for our employees, and that always goes over well when they need gas or groceries or time to pay the mortgage or rent or whatever the situation they're in. So I'm always happy to support any raise, whether it's merit, cost of living, or whatever we're doing for them. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Any other discussion on this? I'm looking at the budget calendar. Do we have, so we'll have first reading, if we move to first reading to May 20th, then that would at least, that would allow the public hearing to happen before second. I'm looking at the calendar.
Right, so it would be June 14th. Right.
When does the budget need to be
Well,
passed?
we need to have a budget before the end of June, y'all.
So the final reading will be July 14th.
No, June.
I mean, June 14th, excuse me, June 14th.
No, June 17th. right?
17th. right.
17th.
17th, right.
I just think you don't have a buffer. There's no buffer.
Hope we don't get another storm that knocks out all the power. We can't have put that out there.
Let's hope not.
Anyway,
Comments?
I think we've made them.
What's your thoughts?
It's fine with me. I mean, I think we pick our battles. I picked mine quite a few tonight. So, I mean, if staff, if that's what you're comfortable with, you're not comfortable with it. Staff.
It's been always known we have first reading now to give ourselves that extra buffer. You know, I just think we lose that flexibility. First reading means nothing tonight anyway.
I think first reading should mean something, and
I mean,
I do think that we've got a full budget book
Yeah.
that's been out there to folks. So
But
if there are
nothing's in
concerns, if there's a way that we can build in time, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I'm not hearing specifics, but I guess if we're able to pass the budget timely by deferring first reading, then
So, Madam Chair, we are able to do it either way, so I know that doesn't help. One thing we can take note of for next year is y'all's desire to have the workshop before the first reading. So we can adjust the budget calendar for next year's to make light of that. Because I think what the feedback that I'm hearing is that workshop would be good to have before the first reading, so y'all can get feedback. That's what I'm hearing. So,
Correct.
in light of that, for next year, we could include that. I think either option, but as you heard from staff, you know, it does put a tight timeline on us, and there's the potential, if you do say to delay this, that there will have to be a special called meeting if y'all don't vote on the budget in the second meeting of June. So that's our concern, that there's flexibility later in the process that's taken away. Doesn't mean it can't be done, because we can do it. Just limits your options the later we get in the process.
I can understand the request to defer. I mean, this is the budget book, it's pretty thick, there's a lot to know and understand, obviously, in this. read through a few things, like the first 10 pages. There's something noted in there that I question, why is it in there, and why is it in there at that amount? I won't go into detail, but it conflicts with, maybe it's conflicting, so.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate deferring to, like someone else said, we've asked many things on first reading, and we'll only get a second and discussion at the workshop next Tuesday. I could go with that.
I don't think I don't think anybody's gonna read through that whole book prior to the workshop anyway. You know, obviously, we're gonna look at things that we think, no, we're not gonna say that we're gonna read this whole budget book before our workshop. I'm not gonna, that's not a reason to defer, but let's vote it up or down and move on. I think we call for the question.
Any other comments from council? I don't have a problem with the deferral, but I do think we need to move forward. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
So,
I have no comment.
all right.
I mean, I'm concerned about the staff, what they feel like is important, so I guess I vote no.
So what's it?
Motion carries. We'll defer it to the next meeting.
Can we have a show of hands of who voted yea and nay? 'Cause
Those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
okay.
No.
Did you vote audibly? You vote no? Okay.
Sure.
All right. Council to consider first reading, oh, we're done with that. Committee and other reports. Finance and Operations Committee meeting Monday, May 6th.
Finance and Operations Committee met today. Present were council members, Audette Adkins and myself. And we considered applications for service for the Catawba Regional Workforce Investment Board. Made the recommendation for Justin Coy for a first term for a vacancy. The Keep York County Beautiful Board, we made the recommendation for the appointment of Karen McVeigh for a first term. The recommendation for consideration of the appointment of Caitlin Boyle for a first term. Those both vacant seats, one District 6, one at large. But the Riverview Fire Tax District, we made the recommendation for the appointment of Ronald Carricker for a first term, and the appointment of Sam Leslie for a second term. We also made the recommendations for allocations of some discretionary funds. Those are from District 4 to HOPE, Helping Others Progress Through Education, in the amount of $2,000. The District 3 to Smyrna Volunteer Fire Department, the amount of $1,750. From District 1 to Isaiah 117 House in the amount of $3,000. We had a discussion regarding personnel ordinance modifications, and the result of that was the recommendation for no change to the sheriff's office, and for York County employees to eliminate the longevity and cap vacation payout at 240 hours. I think there's probably more discussion to come. I don't know when that comes back to council, but there's will be more I think more discussion on that. So, and then we had a finance update, and we were told there were no surprises. Vacancy has come down a little bit. I've got a note of that somewhere here. So for vacancy rates from, I think it was February, March, the rates for the sheriff and the general fund were 8.9%. Those dropped to 6.9 and 8.3 respectively for, I believe it was March. Is that right, Kevin? Do I have the right 2 months? March and April, okay. And then we had, we approved the minutes from the April 15th Finance and Operations Committee meeting. And that was it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Madam Chair, can I just say
Yes.
something quick? And just, Councilmember Love, just wanted to make sure to clarify if current employees were listening to what you shared. You didn't speak to how current employees would be handled.
So current employees would, this would only be for, it would be for current employees and not for new hires. Is that, is the opposite, is the opposite? Okay. Well, I'll let you speak to it. How about that?
So,
You say-
so the changes that you outlined would be for new employees.
Oh, right,
that
the
join.
changes,
The
that's right.
current employees
Yes.
would keep, what they have currently.
Yes.
Just
Is
wanna
that a
make sure.
recommendation that's going to go back to F&O for full vetting, or is that coming to council?
So
I was unclear.
So F&O discussed it and voted on it today, and so what they recommended today will be coming back to the full council.
Sorry about that confusion.
I don't know how quickly we can turn that around, but that would be our intention, that we're going to try to.
All right.
Sorry for the confusion on that.
No citizen concerns. Council member, new non-agenda comments.
Can I take the first plug at this?
Mr. Roddy.
Yes, so as we're all aware, the storm that came through Rock Hill on April 20th. And haven't heard a name for the storm, but we'll just call it the South Side Storm for now. I'm extremely proud and honored how the city of Rock Hill responded, getting people's power back up and going. Chuck over at Emergency Management, how he's been able to navigate us through a lot of things. Our newly minted county manager got his feet wet, obviously, with a lot of things going on, a lot of surprises. He's handled it well. The community, my hat goes off to everyone who's chipped in and done something to help their neighbor, whether it's cleaning up, whether it's assisting them with whatever they've needed to band together to make this difficult time that a lot of people have had over the last several weeks a little more palatable to get through. Encouraging people to do those surveys, still trying to get them to go online. I think we hit a pretty good number. Trying to get a collective number of the total damage that we face. I know FEMA's been in here, SBA and a lot of other organizations who've been doing volunteer cleanup for us. Local organizations have stepped up. We heard here tonight one of the local organization that I've been able to get some funding to, did some outreach, gave out over 500 food boxes just I think it was last weekend. Still trying to help people navigate through what they experienced. A lot of people were thinking it was a tornado, but National Weather Service said it wasn't. It was macro burst, whatever that is. I've been living 50 years, never even heard of it, but we had one right here in Rock Hill. So just trying to remind everybody to still help your neighbors. People are still asking when their street is going to get cleaned up from SCDOT, York County, or Rock Hill with getting the debris to the side of the road. We've had a pretty good effort with Rock Hill and some communication with DOT to help us with those roadside pickups. We had a community meeting less than a week after the storm hit. Chairperson Cox was there helping us navigate, taking questions, really being out front, giving people some sense of direction of what's going on, because let's face it, we don't get hit with storms here that often. I think the last major one was Hugo, and I think that was kind of the bar set for how to deal with it, but it's been, over 30 years since we experienced Hugo, and I think the community has done any and everything it needed to do. Our staff has done an exceptional job of trying to keep us on track. Just want to encourage people to stick in there with us. We're still navigating through some things, trying to get some assistance to the community. But thank you to everyone who has reached out, who's tried to do something in the community to make this difficult time a little more doable. And we had some people who lost a lot, y'all. We had some who weren't affected nearly as much, but those who got hit, they got hit hard. Those who weren't, it's business as usual. But we had some devastating homes, cars, you name it. Some people got wiped out pretty good. So they're going to have to start all over again, and hopefully those who did lose it all, hopefully they had insurance, because you would believe how many people owns a home but still doesn't have homeowners insurance. And that's one thing we got to have a public conversation about. And some people have to choose between homeowners insurance, grocery, homeowners insurance, medicine. So we have some people out there who are still in these type situations, and unfortunately for them who didn't have insurance, hopefully something can come through the community or some organization to help them get back on their feet, because they are part of this community too, and they were very well impacted. So I just wanted to kind of say that and thank everybody who's contributed so far.
Anyone else? Down the line.
Cool.
Nope, nope.
Huh?
So,
Mr. Audette?
yeah, I want to piggyback up Bump's comment. So we do a once-a-month NAMI meeting. It's a mental health organization that oversees, it's the program that's across the United States called NAMI, but we meet once a month in Rock Hill. We meet with a lot of members of the different hospitals in the area and et cetera. And we got a lot of new programs going on with that. But one of the things that came out of our meeting we had last week in Rock Hill was the impact of this storm on people from how do I say it? They're having nightmares about it. I guess that would be the best way to put it. Because some of them, where they got damaged so much on their vehicles, a lot of them never seen Gulf-size hail that have bashed through windows and actually broken through house windows and stuff. So there is an ask, and then we're going to talk to staff about this, that we have a member of our emergency response organization from the county, and we're going to looking to form a joint meeting that they can come and speak to these people that have been involved with this and talk to them about what to do, what are their next, steps, and et cetera. So there's probably more to come, and Josh, we'll reach out to you on there, but I'm glad you brought that up. That is critical. I mean, it was really damaging a lot of people. The reason, the other thing I want to mention, currently in my district, in Debbie's district, we have our exit to 85. We're currently going and expanding on, which is the 160 I-77 intersection. And the widening of that's going to be basically 6 lanes and 3 lanes in both directions, going to 21 and all the way up to Sutton Road. The expansion, and they gave the timeline on it, and it's going to, they're looking to have it completed about September of 2027. But as you can see, they are doing a lot of work now, and there was a lot of work done through RFATS in order to get the funding to move forward with that project. So again, the timeline's there, but they're hoping to hold the timeline. It's a long project, but there's going to be a unique design, and there's going to be flyovers to it, the way you get off the interstate. So again, want to share that with the public.
Okay, quick. You want to go, Tony?
You don't mind.
Okay. Well, the weather has not been very good to York County recently. You guys, with your situation, and we in Fort Mill, for the first time ever, had to cancel the Strawberry Festival Saturday, and that, although people did not lose their homes, which is devastating, but there were people, small business owners that depend on this festival. I mean, like, they can use that money for a long time that they make off that festival. But the community came together, and this is what I love about not only York County, but my district, is when something happens that is devastating to the area, although not nearly as what you guys experienced, they still come together, and it was so heartening to see businesses opening up their business on Sunday to have a little sidewalks areas where those vendors could come and sell their wares that they would have had at the Strawberry Festival. So it was just very heartening to see the community come together. And let me tell you, the communities in my district that are coming together right now would make your heart swell, because they love where they live, and they are determined to keep it a beautiful, community-oriented area. And I'm very, very proud of them. Thank you.
Well, let's see, I'd like to say that we need to remember the families of the officers that lost their life. Commend Josh and all for flying our flags at half-staff. And Bumpit was actually the northwest south, because it started over in Newport, it jumped over across Osteen Road, come through on us. We lost, well, my cousin lost a lot, but we lost one hay shed, some big trees. Then it jumped over there to you and Chrissy. And there are some pictures of funnel clouds if anybody wants to see them. But anyway, thank you.
I think they're called something else. What did they tell us they were called? Like a Spiro something?
Microburst.
I don't know.
But there are funnel clouds.
So I'll just echo a couple of things. I'm very thankful. It's amazing what can happen between one council meeting to the next. This storm really has devastated a very narrow portion of our county, and it always amazes me. Some folks still weren't aware. What do you mean? What happened? So it has really targeted a specific area of our county, and I want to say thank you to Josh. I mean, you haven't been here even a month yet, and to come in and to work with our emergency management and to come up with a plan, and then for us to have a public meeting, I think that was critically important. For us to get a letter out to our delegation asking them to do I mean, their budget is about to close. For us to be able to get a letter out to them and say, hey, we're not sure if there's going to be qualification for FEMA, SBA, or any of these others, but we need for you to look out for these citizens and make sure that whatever has happened in other areas, that you treat this community the same. And I will say this to you, our delegation has been very responsive. Everything that we have sent a letter out to asking them for with SCDOT to help with the pickup of, and to come out twice. I think they're going to have done that before 2 weeks is out to pick up the road debris. They have already said that they will push for things in that budget. Even though the Senate has passed the budget, there is still an opportunity with our House of Representatives to put some relief in there. It looks like the SBA, that we may be closer to qualifying for that, but even still making sure that our local folks, I've learned more about FEMA and SBA, and I think Bump has too. I mean, sitting there trying to understand it and to make sure that we do everything we can to get as much support and help we can for our community, and I do feel like that's happening. And I know that emergency management from the state, as well as SBA, as well as FEMA representatives have come out to push for that as well. And so I do feel like we are doing everything possible to come up with as much as we can to help that area. And for those of you who have gone out and supported, Michael and I went with Samaritan's Purse to do some. You get more blessed than they do by helping folks who are older and helping them move debris to their road. A 90-year-old Mary that I met, I mean, I got more blessed from doing that than I know she got from meeting us. But I mean, it really is nice to see our community come together and to know that our manager reached out the very first day of the storm to city management and folks pulling together. That's what we need to do as a community. I will say the only other thing I would like to add is I do think whenever we've made a commitment as council members that when something comes up from RECODE that we're not aware of, that we make sure that we put it out there and hang it out there and have a full debate on. And tonight, one of the things that came up was what's going on with AGC. And so I know when we had this discussion, the comments were, we need to update RECODE, we need to update this code because we haven't done it for 20 years, but we weren't changing philosophically these ownership interests. And it's fine if that's where council wants to go with this, but we need to have a full debate and a discussion on it because we didn't have the discussion on, and I think even staff thought it was still 2 to 5 acres when we looked into this. And so I think we need to drill down on that and at least make sure that folks have been made aware that we've had a full debate on it, and that if this is what we're going to do, that council has fully blessed that. So I'm expecting, and I hope that comes up in our next council meeting. We still do have executive session items. So is there a motion for executive session?
Yes, we have several items here. Receipt of legal advice, consideration of mediated settlement for Project US 21 Force Main Replacement Project number 19301, track number 33. A receipt of legal advice, request to authorize condemnation regarding Project 17228-003, track 26, S50. Cell River Widening Phase 2, receipt of legal advice, request authorization of condemnation regarding Project 17228-004, track 16, Sutton Spratt, Fort Mill Parkway widening, contractual matter, property acquisition, receipt of legal advice, litigation, and legal update, receipt of advice and contractual matter, proposed sale of county property, and lastly, receipt of advice, advisor contractual matter, Rock Hill 3/20/24 TIF request.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move straight into executive session. Out of executive session, no action was taken. Do we have any motions?
Yeah, we got a few here. Motion to authorize settlement agreement for project US 21 Force Main Replacement, project number 19301, track 33, as discussed during executive session. The next motion to authorize.
Wait, let's stop with that one. We get a second?
Sorry.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
All right, second one, motion to authorize condemnation regarding project 17228-003, project S50, Celanese widening Phase 2, track 26, as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Okay, motion to authorize condemnation regarding project number 17228-004, project Sutton Spratt, Fort Mill Parkway widening, track 16, as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Motion to reject the notice change to the Third Amendment of the Intergovernmental Agreement between the City of Rock Hill and with York County regarding the Consolidated Redevelopment Project Area, the TIF District, as contained in the March 20th, 2024 letter delivered to David Husband, and to direct management to issue a letter to the city communicating council's action.
Second, and that is to reject.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
All right.